Hey guys. This is part 6 of What If Naruto Met a Legendary Creature. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 12, Clash of the Kaiju. Time seemed to stand still for Takigakure no Sato as the sound of the awakened strange beast's roar echoed across the land. Villagers that had once been peacefully going about their business all stopped, frozen in terror at the feeling of bloodlust and heavy killing intent in the air. Even the members of the shinobi forces could not find the will to move their limbs despite their best efforts to do so. The ground shook. The sound of trees toppling was positively deafening, and the three shinobi that were currently standing before the behemoth could only stare in awe and a mild bit of fear. Iris was shown to be a bipedal creature with two hooved legs and sword-like arms, topped by a head that resembled a pointed seashell. Its back is a mass of saw-edged plates, and from its sides spring 4 tentacles hundreds of meters long. Each of these was tipped with a bony spearhead. Its chest region was also covered in glossy, bioluminescent patches. That's Iris? Naruto muttered more to himself than to the Raijuu inside of him. It is, Kamina replied. Iris's eyes glowed with an ominous yellow light before it released another powerful roar. The massive beast then turned its head as it sensed the presence of chakra signatures, before glancing down at the three shinobi before it. Do you think it saw us? Jiraiya asked. Iris roared, generating a massive shockwave that sent out a pulse of dust and debris, felled a few trees, and also had the three skidding backwards despite their use of chakra to anchor themselves to the ground. I think it did, Shibuki replied. The tentacles on Iris's body reared up before lashing out towards the three shinobi. Naruto quickly dodged to the left as one tentacle raced towards him before going into a roll on the ground to avoid another. He pushed himself up to his feet and jumped back as another tentacle stabbed its spear-like tip into the earth where he had once been standing. The earth began to rumble, and the blue-eyed Jinchuriki quickly went into a series of backflips to avoid the tentacle, and it dug into the ground and popped back out with the intention of impaling the blonde. Naruto skidded backwards as the earth rumbled behind him, and a second tentacle emerged. The two appendages writhed in the air before rearing back and shooting towards Naruto. However, the blonde quickly found himself being carried by his perverted sensei. Jiraiya dug his sandals into the ground to slow his movement before Shibuki jumped away from the three massive tentacles that tried to impale him, landing beside Jiraiya and his young disciple. Alright, we have to deal with those tentacles, Jiraiya said. Shibuki, Naruto, give me an opening by dealing with them, and then I'll strike the main body. Alright. The two younger shinobi nodded to the white-haired Sannin member. Iris's eyes glowed once before, roaring in what one would think was annoyance as not being able to capture its prey. The lengthy appendages reared up like snakes before rocketing towards Naruto and Shibuki. Jiraiya leaped back to take the rear position while Shibuki and Naruto took the forefront. Two of the tentacles crashed down into the ground as they leaped over them before landing atop them and running along their lengths. Two more tentacles lashed out, intending to impale the two shinobi. Shibuki leaped and performed a front flip while Naruto dropped to his knees and skidded, leaning backwards to his upper body, which was now parallel to the tentacle as it passed overhead. Shibuki and Naruto then formed their respective hand signs. Suiton, Mizu no Yaiba. Futon, Kaze no Yaiba. Chakra mixed with the water vapor in the air, condensing it and creating the liquid weapon while the wind and chakra swirled around the blonde Jinchuriki's own arm and generated a spiraling wind blade. Shibuki had completed his front flip, bringing his water blade down in the form of a downward vertical slash, while Naruto pushed himself up to his feet and performed an upward slash. Both elemental blades slashed into the flesh of the tentacles, but they barely cut into the thick flesh. But the green-blue colored blood that flowed from the appendages was definitely able to cause some pain as Iris growled and caused the tentacles to smack against the enemy combatants. Shibuki righted himself in midair while Naruto continued through the air only to be caught by his white-haired sensei. Katon, Gakkaku no Jutsu. Shibuki and Naruto summoned forth blades of wind and water respectively, While Jiraiya took a deep inhalation of air before exhaling forcefully, a massive fireball raging across the landscape. Shibuki, do you have any idea what this is? Jiraiya asked the leader of Taki, setting Naruto down on the ground as he did so. The brown-haired man shook his head. I honestly don't. Not even Otosama told me about this thing, and from the gaping hole in the tree I can only presume that the beast came from within the great tree itself, Shibuki said. Iris's body then pulsated as a mixture of crimson and azure flowed across the length of its body along what appeared to be veins. The two colors occasionally mixed to form a shade of amethyst, and Naruto's eyes widened as he felt the pulsations with his enhanced senses. There's so much chakra in that thing, Jiraiya muttered. And it's too large. I'm not sure that Gamabunta would be big enough to take on that thing. Iris roared before smashing its foot down on the ground as it stepped forward. The shockwave sent them all skidding backwards before Naruto formed his trademark cross-shaped hand sign. Kaige Bunshin no Jutsu. 30 clones sprung to life around their creator before they all leaped into action. Holding out their hands, massive amounts of chakra swirled into the center of their palms to form condensed spheroids of rotating chakra that expanded to the size of basketballs. Ninpu, Otama Rasengan Rendan. The clones roared as they thrust their attacks forward. Massive explosions of blue chakra smashed against the tentacles they struck, but the clones watched in surprise as the chakra seemed to be absorbed into the tentacles, like blood flowing through an artery. Another tentacle then lashed out like a whip. All the clones were sent rocketing to the ground, turning into small clouds of smoke upon impact. Separate craters dotted the earth before the final Naruto smashed into the ground, the cloud being a brown town due to the dust and dirt, thus revealing that to be the original Naruto's personal crater. Naruto grunted as he shook his head while climbing back to his feet. Are you alright, Naruto-kun? Shibuki asked. Naruto wiped the blood that dribbled from his lips before nodding. Iris's deafening roar echoed through the air once more as its 4 tentacles struck forth once more. Naruto and Shibuki quickly flashed through another string of hand signs. Suetun, Mizurappa. Raitun, Raikurai no Jutsu. Shibuki expelled a massive burst of water while Naruto thrust out his hands and a powerful bolt of blue lightning shot forth. The Suetun Jutsu sent one of the attacking tentacles off to the side while Naruto's own technique caused a powerful explosion that had Iris roaring in pain as the flesh was scorched and electrocuted. However, while those 2 tentacles were knocked aside, the other 2 remaining ones lashed out. Jiraiya had quickly saw his opportunity, and but his thumb before running through hand signs. Doton, Tsunryu no Kiba no Jutsu. He yelled out while slamming his hand on the ground. The earth rumbled before it burst apart to reveal 2 identical dragon heads stretching out of their earthen confines. Their yellow eyes glowed with power before they unleashed a loud roar. The dragon heads opened their mouths before bearing down on the tentacles, biting the flesh and forcing them away from the 3 shinobi. I'm not done yet, Jiraiya bellowed to the kaiju as he bit his thumb. Kuchios no Jutsu. Slamming his hand on the ground, an intricate ceiling array formed, followed by a relatively large plume of smoke. The white cloud dispersed to reveal Jiraiya had called forth a toad that was about the size of 2 elephants. It was red and gold and had a large white mustache on its face. Clad in samurai-like armor, the massive toad glanced up at its summoner and nodded respectfully. Jiraiya-san, a pleasure to fight alongside you again. The samurai-like toad spoke in a respectful tone. Jiraiya stood atop the toad's head before quickly running through hand signs. Same here, but there's no time for chit-chat. Alright Gamakiku, let's go. Hi, Jiraiya-san. The toad's body bulged slightly, and then its cheeks expanded. Ninpu, Gamayuden. Gamakiku unleashed a powerful stream of black oil. At the same moment, Jiraiya finished his hand signs and took a deep inhalation of air, chakra and air building up within his lungs before it was converted into a nature akin to that of fire. The chakra and oxygen ignited within his body and Jiraiya's body swelled before he exhaled. Katon, Gakakyu no Jutsu. The fireball quickly collided with the oil stream and the oil was ignited, turning into a powerful tongue of flame. Katon, Gameya Enden. Jiraiya then glanced back to the son of the Yondaime Hokage. Naruto, Give it some wind. On it, Naruto replied. Futon de Tapa. The powerful burst of wind rocketed forth as Naruto thrust his hands forward. The chakra-enhanced winds quickly merged with the burning oil stream and the flames intensified. The enhanced Katon Jutsu streaked through the air before colliding against Iris's chest. A massive explosion resulted and the Kaiju released a cry of pain as it was struck. Fire and smoke obscured the behemoth from view. Did we get it? Shibuki asked with a hopeful tone of voice. Shibuki, if the giant Kaiju is still standing after we just made a giant explosion occur after hitting it, then obviously, we did not get it, Naruto exclaimed. Kaiju? Jiraiya and Shibuki tilted their heads in confusion at that. The attempt to ask Naruto about the strange term he used for Iris was interrupted when the smoke cloud dispersed and Iris's eyes shone with rage. There were a few small scorch marks that formed on the armored areas, and some burned flesh on the unprotected areas. However, Iris released a thunderous roar and a pulse of red and blue suddenly flowed across its body, following a vein-like path. The flesh healed so quickly that steam rose from its body due to the exothermic reaction, and it occurred so quickly, it appeared as if the regeneration was more akin to that of time reversal. Jaya! The massive beast roared before lashing out with its 4 tentacles once more. Jiraiya-san! Gamakiku quickly jumped into the path of the tentacles with his arms crossed. However, while the massive toad did manage to defend his summoner and said summoner's allies, the spear-tipped weapon had managed to pierce through the thick armor the toad wore and Gamakiku's eyes widened as he felt the chakra being sucked straight out of his body. I am sorry for failing you, Jiraiya-san. Gamakiku then retreated to Myobokuzen, vanishing in a plume of smoke before all of his chakra could be ripped away from him. Blue chakra flowed up the tentacle and into Iris's body, and the 4 tentacles continued on their path to attack the shinobi. The tentacles then lashed out and aimed to impale them, but the 3 shinobi leaped out of the way only for the tentacles to shift themselves and slap them aside. Crashing through numerous trees, Naruto, Jiraiya and Shibuki tore 3 separate trenches in the ground when they managed to stop ripping through foliage. The trees were swatted aside like how one would sweep aside dust under a rug, and Iris soon had a clear view of its prey. With a roar, 3 of Iris's tentacles dug into the ground. The earth rumbled before the spear-tipped tentacles erupted forth and impaled them all. The 3 shinobi had their eyes wide as they were limp against the spear tips. However, the chakra drained out of each of them, and so Iris released a small cry of confusion when the large chakra signatures it had called its prey vanished far too quickly to its liking. That confusion then increased when the 3 vanished from view as puffs of white smoke. Iris then glanced up as a massive cloud of smoke appeared in the air above it, a massive shadow encompassing its form. The shadow was shown to be the one of a massive, light blue-colored toad with 2 swords strapped to its back. Gamahiro fell down and slammed on top of Iris with devastating force, enough to cause a massive crater when the kaiju was slammed into the ground. Kuchios, Yatai Kazushi no Jutsu. Jiraiya's voice resounded as he, Naruto, and Shibuki stood atop the kaiju. Minato performed that same technique to stop my Bijudama from blowing the village when I attacked. Kurama commented. Really? Kamina blinked in surprise. That's very impressive. Well, it wasn't as much stopping as it was redirecting. I blew up some large piece of forest a few kilometers away. Can you two shut up about the past and actually give me some advice on how to stop this thing? Naruto mentally shouted. Kurama and Kamina became silent at that, knowing that the young Jinchuriki needed to defeat this beast. The fact that it was getting up easily, pushing Gamahiro off of its back in the process, was far too unsettling for the Bijou and Raijuu. Gamahiro's eyes then widened as 2 of the tentacles wrapped around its waist, the spear tips managing to lightly dig into the toad's flesh. Gamahiro, remove those tentacles quickly, Jiraiya told him. Gamahiro nodded and quickly drew his twin swords. He sliced through the tentacles and green-blue blood sprayed across the land behind the great tree, the area of Takigakure that had become a battleground. Iris roared in pain, but then its 2 other tentacles wrapped themselves around Gamahiro's waist, and with monstrous strength, Iris used its limbs for the first time. A powerful clawed fist raced through the air before crashing against Gamahiro's face. Blood spurted from the amphibious summon's nose before it was sent rocketing through the air. Jiraiya and Shibuki were grabbed by Naruto and a cage bunchen of the blonde as he activated his Bukujutsu. Hovering in the air, the four watched in shock as the giant toad had crashed down on his back atop of the buildings of Taki. Shit. Jiraiya muttered. That was a punch, a fucking punch. A single punch sent Gamahiro flying through the air. I mean, I know that thing is bigger, but to be that much stronger in terms of physical might. I'm going to have so much paperwork to do when this is over. Shibuki muttered. His brown eyes then gained a serious light to them before he turned to Jiraiya and the original Naruto. Jiraiya-sama, Naruto-kun, that demon is going to head towards the village now that it's in its sights. His statement was proven true as the massive kaiju roared, stomping trees into splinters and leaving massive footprints behind as he headed towards the downed Gamahiro, and the village as well. The trio then felt a massive rise in chakra coming from the kaiju, and suddenly, a mixture of crimson and blue chakra burst forth from its body, starting from the chest area and spreading over its entire body. Their eyes widened in shock as they watched the writhing stumps that had once been Iris's lower tentacles beginning to regenerate. Flesh and blood were created anew, and soon the kaiju had its tentacle count back up to 4. It regenerated that much in only a few seconds. Shibuki muttered. Just what the hell are we dealing with? It's heading to continue its fight with Gamahiro. Maybe if I let go of him, it will turn its focus back on us. Jiraiya said. That was Komiai's and Fu's chakra used in that healing process. Naruto thought in realization. That bastard kaiju. Kurama growled. I can't believe that the insect is letting himself be used in such a disgraceful manner. Naruto, you have to find a way to break through and get Fu out of Iris's body, Kamina said. Naruto and Kurama rolled their eyes at the Raijuu. You think I haven't been trying to think of a way to do that? Naruto mentally shouted to the Thunder Beast. Its regeneration speed from taking away chakra is only enhanced since it has Biju chakra at its disposal. It practically ruined my Odama Rasengan Rendan earlier, and now it is shown to have a more monstrous level of strength than I thought. When you get an idea to help me instead of stating the obvious, then talk to me, Kamina-sensei. Before either Raijuu or Biju could respond, Naruto had returned his focus back onto the battle. Suten, Suryuden no Jutsu. A collective shout from numerous jounin of Takigakure echoed through the air. Naruto, Jiraiya and Shibuki had their eyes wide when at least 15 massive water dragons roared to life, rising out of the massive lake where the whole bearing great tree had been settled. No! Shibuki exclaimed. His shout was in vain, however, as Iris swung its massive claws. In 2 very powerful and surprisingly swift motions, the ancient monster ripped through every single water dragon like it wasn't even there. The 150-foot-tall beast roared as its tentacles lashed out, and Jiraiya, Naruto, and Shibuki watched in horror as all of the shinobi that valiantly attempted to stop the kaiju were horribly impaled by the tips of the sharp tentacles. Blood stained the tips of them before blue, vein-like patterns stretched over the length of the tentacles for a few seconds. When the 15 bodies had their chakra drained from them, they were then dropped to the ground before Iris's massive body tore through the nearby buildings and most likely crushed them beneath its feet. Iris roared as it began to make its way past the edge of the village. Screams of the Takigakure residents, shinobi and civilians alike, echoed across the air as the massive kaiju began its rampage. Gamahiro climbed back to his feet before drawing his twin swords, his yellow eyes narrowing at the approaching kaiju. Jiraiya-sama, I'm sorry, but your earlier plan to release Gamahiro will not save my village, Shibuki said. Keep your summon around to fight back. That demon drew chakra out of my shinobi when they attacked it. I felt the loss of chakra signatures from them, so even if you recall your summon, that beast will just continue to rampage until it turns all the men, women and children into chakraless corpses. This was confirmed as more of Shibuki's combat-ready shinobi and kunoichi raced to the battlefront. Massive bursts of water dragons, earth spears and earthen creatures were summoned forth to do battle. But it had no effect on the kaiju, as its nearly invulnerable form was quickly capable of regenerating as it called upon the mixture of red and blue chakra that flowed whenever it needed to heal itself from the minor wounds, only to retaliate and drain the chakra from them. Fires began to spring up in random areas where Iris passed through. The ground beneath the outer layer of Takigakure was then ripped apart as two tentacles tunneled underneath it before exploding out towards Gamahiro. The giant toad slashed at the kaiju's main weapons with his swords, sparks flying as the spear-like tips created friction against the blades. Gamahiro then leaped over the other two tentacles before performing a front flip and slamming a strong kick to the center of Iris's chest. The kaiju was sent skidding backwards, tearing a massive trench in the earth, only for it to fly into the air when Gamahiro delivered another strong kick to the chest. Iris flew through the air from the powerful toad's attack before crashing down into the massive lake. A giant wave rose up from the impact and washed all the way into the village, making it seem as if Takigakure had just replaced their streets with canals. Iris roared as its tentacles lashed out at Gamahiro, but the large toad deflected the strikes with his superb kenjutsu skills before twirling his blades and going for a double downward stab, intending to impale the kaiju. Said kaiju's eyes glowed with rage before it lifted its legs and lashed out with a strong kick that knocked the wind out of Gamahiro's lungs. Another massive wave of water formed from the road summit's splash, but the toad quickly rolled back to its feet before delivering a swift series of sword strikes. Gamahiro performed a double diagonal strike before using his left blade to do a horizontal slash, while the right blade was brought upwards in a vertical one. The massive toad then followed up with a spinning attack that had Iris skidding backwards before he charged forward and delivered a strong stab to the abdominal area before spinning on his heel, spinning the swords in his hands to hold them in a reverse grip. The blue-skinned toad brought them up in a powerful double vertical slash that caused more of the kaiju's lifeblood to spray everywhere, splattering across Gamahiro's chest and dyeing the crystal waters of the lake with the same color. Green-blue blood flowed from where Gamahiro had struck unarmored areas of Iris's flesh, but the regeneration was instantaneous. Iris then roared before performing its own counter. Lashing out wildly and swiftly, the four tentacles had Gamahiro backpedaling with each collision with the toad's dual blades. Iris's eyes glowed brightly, and while Gamahiro was too busy holding off its tentacles, the kaiju's chest suddenly began to glow as chakra began to charge within its body. Red and blue flowed up from its chest and led to its mouth where the energy became a bright gold. Iris then reared back its head while withdrawing its tentacles. The toad summit's eyes widened along with everyone else's as Iris suddenly unleashed a powerful burst of golden energy from its body. The golden energy beam streaked across the lake, parting the water slightly from the force of its momentum. Glancing behind him, the large toad summon quickly took notice of how its summoner and two others were standing atop a building directly behind it. The attack was too large for them to attempt to dodge, even if he could do it. So Gamahiro quickly had to cross his blades in front of him in order to block the attack. The toad's eyes widened as he was sent skidding backwards. Channeling chakra into his swords to increase their durability, Gamahiro grunted with effort as he tried to push back against the energy blast. With a roar of effort, Gamahiro performed a strong X-shaped slash that diverted the attack, but the action ended up sending the energy blast to either side of the toad. Massive trenches ripped apart the ground, the Takigakure buildings that were caught in their path were destroyed, and the screams of people in pain and or fear seemed to echo through the air. The beam of chakra came to an end, leaving behind scorched earth and ruin. Gamahiro panted heavily before turning to Jiraiya. "Jiraiya-sama, I don't know what it is I'm fighting, but I'm spent now. Deflecting that attack took everything I had. I'm done." That was all he said before he vanished in a puff of smoke. Jiraiya. Thinking its foe to have been vanquished indefinitely, Iris released a roar in victory. Jiraiya gritted his teeth as he glared at the kaiju. However, his dark eyes widened when Iris's massive tentacles raced towards them. "Jump!" the Sannin ordered. Naruto quickly formed a clone and performed his Bokujutsu once more, gripping Shibuki and Jiraiya as they jumped from their perch, and the building was broken apart like it was made of glass. The tentacles quickly redirected themselves and lashed out at the three shinobi and one clone as they flew through the air. Naruto and his clones were forced into a series of climbs, dives, barrel rolls, and unexpected loop-de-loops in order to avoid the attacks from the kaiju. Once they reached close enough to the great tree, Naruto and his clone quickly dove behind one of its massive roots for cover. This should protect us for a few seconds, Naruto muttered as his clone vanished in a puff of smoke. Iris growled to itself, looking around for the prey that vanished from view. It could sense their presence as they were the three largest chakra signatures in the vicinity. It's heading this way, Jiraiya muttered. Seeing as how it's a predator that hunts chakra, it stands to reason that it can probably sense chakra as well. And it's focusing on us because the three of us have such high chakra levels, Shibuki correctly assumed. Especially with Jiraiya-sama and Naruto-kun, this demon will be able to pinpoint us quickly. Iris's loud approaching stomps did not help argue against that comment from the leader of Takigakure. Naruto. The blonde turned to his perverted godfather, as he was called upon. Earlier in battle, you called that thing a kaiju. What is that? An ancient beast that lived long before humanity, from what Kamina-sensei has told me. During the Age of the Gods, the Kaiju were like the first creatures to walk the earth, I guess, with powers and strength that could rival even the deities themselves. Gojira is actually a Kaiju as well, Naruto explained. He grew a bit worried as the stomps of Iris began to grow closer. Does Kamina know about this one? Jiraiya asked. Yeah, he said it was called Iris for reasons neither of us know. He said that it feeds on negative emotions and also sucks chakra away from every single living thing it could find, and uses it as a form of nourishment and power. But if it takes in chakra from every living thing, then that means that it's taking in nature chakra as well, Jiraiya muttered. Nature chakra? Naruto and Shibuki looked at the sage in confusion. Everything has chakra, that includes the very natural environment around us. If that thing draws a nature chakra, it is practically unstoppable. The only way to counter a force of nature is with another force of nature, but it seems that since it only just grew to this size, it's still not able to draw in enough chakra from nature to become as strong as it should be, Jiraiya explained. Jiraiya speaks a possible truth, and it makes sense. Iris was an indestructible force of nature, and so by drawing nature chakra from the world around it would have been why it could never physically be beaten. Only another force of nature could counter it, which would be either divine creatures like myself, or the gods and goddesses, and other kaiju. Kamina spoke. Since it isn't capable of harnessing the nature chakra in a way to make it truly invincible, if we were to put it in terms of growing stages, Iris would be an adolescent. Naruto was silent for a moment as he processed this information, but the rumbling sounds of Iris's footsteps and its growls snapped him out of it. It also seems to have regeneration by using the chakra it takes, and it seems that its healing was increased due to latching onto Fu earlier. I was wondering why it suddenly took Fu, Shibuki said. It probably sensed the Nanabai's chakra when you were fighting her as well as her negative emotions, since that is usually what triggers a Jinchuriki's use of their Biju's chakra, and since the Nanabai has such large amounts of chakra, practically limitless, then it is using Fu as a primary energy source. But also from that, we could glean that since a lot of its attacks have been directed at you, it also wants the chakra from the Kyuubi from you, Naruto-kun. Naruto's eyes narrowed. I'm not going to ask how you know about the Kyuubi, but you're probably right. Anyway, if we get Fu out, we can at least slow it down, but we also need to get it outside of Taki because at this rate, you're not going to have much of a village left to lead if this goes on, Naruto said to the leader of Taki. But how do we do that? The brown-haired man asked. Jiraiya, Naruto, and Shibuki were not given time to discuss that topic, however, as they glanced down at their feet. Move! Jiraiya ordered. Leaping to the trunk of the great tree, the giant root they had been hiding behind was ripped apart by one of Iris's tentacles. The golden-eyed kaiju roared as it took notice of its prey once more, focusing more intently on Naruto. Looks like the spineless wimp was right, Kurama said. It's looking for you, probably senses my chakra as well as the Raijuu's own. Divine chakra and demonic chakra have always given off powerful signatures. If we weren't inside Naruto, Iris wouldn't have found you three much faster, Kamina commented. As the three shinobi leaped against the side of a tree trunk, they were quickly forced to push off to get out of the way of the spear-headed tentacles that came their way. The piece of vegetation was roughly impaled, and the tentacles quickly removed themselves from the great tree to try and kill its intended targets for the umpteenth time. Skidding across the water's surface upon landing, Shibuki took the forefront. Shibuki took a deep breath as he went through some hand signs. Suetun, Daisujin Hiki no Jutsu. A massive water wall formed out of the water and the lake swirled around the three of them. Jiraiya, Shibuki and Naruto watched as the two tentacles that raced towards them suddenly took on a bright red glow, and Naruto's eyes widened as he felt the chakra used by the Kaiju. Komiai's chakra. Kurama's voice echoed in his mind. Naruto, it's going to break through. Duck! Duck! Naruto cried out loud. Shibuki and Jiraiya's eyes widened and they did as Naruto had exclaimed, ducking just in time as the massive spear tips passed overhead, ripping through the dense wall of water like it was made of tissue paper, and crashed into the waters behind them, sending them flipping through the air from the force of the splash. Recovering from their landing atop the water behind them, Naruto glanced back at the tentacles. Kamina, do you know anything about Iris's anatomy? Those tentacles have to be connected to something, he asked the Thunder Beast. The divine creature gave a quick hum of thought, but shook his head. Not in enough detail. Iris was sealed away instead of being killed like most of the Kaiju. Though from this recent observation I can now see that those tentacles are probably linked to some sort of storage organ within its body. Naruto's mental self brightens upon hearing that. A storage organ? Yes. In plants, food and water are stored within the phloem and xylem cells of the leaf. The same principle could be applied to Iris and its absorption of chakra. If you could disrupt the storage organ, then its ability to heal will be compromised for a bit, and then you can break through its body and get Fu out of there. I see. But how do I break through its armor and flesh long enough for me to get in and get to Fu? Surprisingly, Kurama was the one to answer it. Naruto, I'll need you to draw on my chakra for that part. What? You promised that you would be my last Jinchuriki when all is said and done. That act requires a level of trust on my part, and if you let me do this, I'll begin to actually trust you more than I do now. How much do you trust me? Naruto asked. At the moment, not at all. That makes this so much better, Naruto sarcastically replied. Shut it, you hairless monkey. Look, I need you to trust me, and I swear on my honor as a Bijuu, I will not take over your body for any longer than necessary. The Raijuu would fight back even if I did try to, but you need at least one tail in order to gain the level of strength needed for this. There was a small pause, but given the situation, Naruto didn't have to think for long. All right. Good. Kurama nodded in satisfaction. Now first, get that Kaiju out of the village and then I'll handle the rest to help you save Komiai's Jinchuriki. A plan then formulated in his mind, but the blonde was suddenly smacked out of his thoughts, literally. Naruto's eyes widened when he was suddenly smacked through the air by the wildly moving appendage. He rolled on the water and came to a stop, grunting in pain as he held his mending ribs. Having a Bijuu inside you was so awesome sometimes. Suetun, Suryuden no Jutsu. Katon, Ryuka no Jutsu. Shibuki quickly summoned a water dragon while Jiraiya breathed out a tongue of flame, but Iris tore through the high-level jutsu like they were nothing. However, just as the Kaiju was about to attack them once more, Naruto had intervened. Tajua Kagebunshin no Jutsu. He flared his chakra, drawing Iris's attention, and soon 2,000 clones were standing at the ready. Hold it off, he ordered. OSU. The clones replied before beginning to bombard Iris with attacks. A few of the clones stood by the original blonde Uzumaki. Naruto ran up to his sensei, an old friend with the Kagebunshins behind him. Shibuki, Erokyofu, I have an idea, he yelled at them. You do? They replied in shock. Yeah. He nodded stiffly. Erokyofu, I need you to get outside as quickly as you can with 2 of my clones and watch over them as they do their thing. Shibuki, is there another way out of the village other than through the water tunnels? Shibuki nodded. There are the underground tunnels by my tower used for me to escape should I be put in danger, but you won't know where to go unless I'm there. So, the quickest way would be to climb the great tree. The village is surrounded by a massive rock and encircles the entire great tree. If you can climb the tree to the top, you'd already be outside. You heard him. Fly. Naruto told the clones. One of the clones gripped Jiraiya by the shoulders before lifting him into the air. With a burst of chakra, the clones soared into the air. Iris roared when it took notice of the two, but the other clones that flew alongside them took the hits from the tentacles, their chakra absorbed upon being struck by the spear-tipped appendages. Once they were gone, Naruto turned to Shibuki. Shibuki, I need a big swake unjutsu. The biggest one you got, enough to soak that thing. I'll help you with the process. Alright, Naruto-kun. Shibuki nodded to the young blonde. Shibuki went through various hand signs along with Naruto. Suetun, Dai Baku Swishoha. Shibuki's cheeks bulged as his chakra pulsed immensely within his body. He then expelled a powerful explosion of water against the surface of the lake, enough to propel himself into the air and generate a miniature tidal wave. Naruto then clapped his hands together as he finished his own hand signs. Futon, Tatsumaki no Jutsu. The winds howled before rotating wildly, picking up the water from Shibuki's own jutsu when it crashed against Iris's form. The tornado continued to climb higher and higher. Naruto gritted his teeth as he strained his concentration and personal chakra reserves to increase the size of the typhoon he just generated. Soon, Iris was completely encased in water. Puffs of smoke decorated the water twister as some of the remainder of Naruto's clones were killed by their creator's move. Iris roared and its tentacles smashed against the water twister, ripping it apart with barely any effort. However, Shibuki had done his job to help soak the kaiju down, and with that, Naruto and the remaining 100 of formerly 2,000-man clone army called upon the powers of the Raijuu. Raijuu Arc, Choden du Wasanda Fosu. The 101 Narutos called upon the powers of the divine lightning beast. The water vapor in the air condensed, and massive cumulonimbus clouds formed as Naruto's chakra began to course through the air. Thunder echoed across the burning village of Takigakure, and lightning stretched from cloud to cloud before the bolts all gathered in one single point. A massive bolt of electricity then fell from above, and for a split second, the bolt shifted into the likeness of Kamina. The sapphire-colored bolt crashed down Iris's soaked form, and the kaiju unleashed a loud cry of pain as its body convulsed heavily. Not even the demonic chakra from Chome was capable of regenerating it fast enough to recuperate. The light from the lightning bolt then died down, and Iris stumbled forward, falling down onto its claws and knees, smoke and steam rising from its body. Naruto quickly vanished in a spark of lightning and swirl of wind as he used his Raijuu arc, Shunshin, to appear atop Iris's head. He then looked at his clones. Restrain it while you can. The clones nodded before reaching to their respective weapons pouches and pulled out seal tags. They slapped them on to the kaiju's arms and legs and then pumped the seals full of chakra. Chains of kanji stretched out from the paper and wrapped themselves around Iris's arms, legs, and especially its 4 tentacles. Fuinjutsu, Hibi Shirbari. The 150-foot-tall beast growled in annoyance as it suddenly felt its body being bound, but with there being chakra supplying its restraints, it was only a matter of time before it would break free. Iris growled as its body was already beginning to resist, but Naruto had gained enough time to draw out his own seal array with his brush on Iris's bone-looking skull. Now let's get this thing out of the village, Naruto exclaimed. The clones nodded and one of them dispelled itself. As the information spread throughout his clones, Naruto's other clones were beginning to die as he placed most of his concentration into providing the chakra needed for the jutsu he was about to perform. Fuinjutsu, Ibukuchios. Cor. Forest, outside Takigakure no Sato. Jiraiya watched as the Naruto clone in front of him had reached into its pouch and pulled out an ink brush and bottle. With the swiftness and skill of a budding Uzumaki Fuinjutsu expert, a level of skill which was still one to be recognized, the blonde quickly drew a large circle of kanji before drawing strings of kanji at 20-degree angles so that the circle was evenly split into fifths. The clone then turned to Jiraiya and pointed at the seal array. You may want to move away from that when I dispel myself. Why? Jiraiya asked. The dark-eyed Sannin member then looked a bit closer at the seal array before his eyes widened in realization. Oh, that's just insane, Naruto, clone Naruto. Jiraiya corrected himself. Do you have any idea how much chakra it would take to do this? Jinchuriki or not, doing this is going to make your original body spent. That's why Kyuubi is going to help me. The clone grinned toothily. The grin then fell away as a sudden shock came over the clone. Its pupils dilated as a rush of information entered its chakra brain before a serious look came over it. It's time. Erokyofu, move away and make sure you get a good enough view to watch what Kyuubi and I are about to do. The clone then puffed away and Jiraiya was quick to utilize his shunshin. Vanishing in a swirl of leaves, the white-haired shinobi quickly reappeared a significant distance away from the seal array. A few seconds later, a massive crash accompanied by an equally massive plume of smoke appeared where the seal array had been. The smoke then cleared and revealed Iris, now free of its bindings, rising to its full height once more before glancing around in surprise at seeing it was no longer near the populated areas of Takagore no Sato, but instead, was outside. Standing atop the Kaiju's head, Naruto panted in exertion. All right. He gasped out. It worked. Kyuubi, you're up. Naruto's body suddenly unleashed a massive explosion of blood-red chakra, something which Iris felt. The Kaiju's yellow eyes narrowed in annoyance before shaking its head to get the Jinchuriki off of it. The Jinchuriki's body tumbled through the air, but with inhuman reaction speed and agility, Naruto's body suddenly landed on branches of the trees that made up the canopy of the forests. In a burst of red chakra, Naruto then launched himself into the air and activated his ability to fly via Bukujutsu. The chakra then began to bubble and twist, taking on the shape of a fox. Lengthy ears grew from the top of his head, his nails became claws, his teeth became fangs, and finally, the whisker marks of his face grew more messy in appearance, and finally, a bubbling tail swish stretched out of the rear end of the cloak, swishing behind him. Naruto's eyes snapped open, revealing his blue eyes were now a bloody crimson with his pupils becoming vertical slits, and a malicious version of his trademark foxy grin stretched across his face. He flexed his fingers and tightened them into fists, rolling his shoulders as if he were now experiencing moving his body. It's been far too long since I felt the outside. The dark voice of Kurama came from Naruto's vocal cords. But I swore on my honor as a Bija, so I'll have to hold up my end of the bargain for the kit. Now then, let's get this rust off. Kurama reared back the head of his Jinchuriki before charging a bit of chakra into his throat. Gra! The loud roar echoed through the air and a massive pulse of chakra and wind was released with the shockwave. The test attack slammed against Iris's form as it rose back to its full height and caused a small explosion of red chakra. The poisonous chakra had no effect on the Kaiju, but it did get its attention. Iris reared back its four massive tentacles before driving them towards Kurama. The possessed body of Naruto quickly flew around the appendages as they attempted to run him through, but with the augmented chakra output increasing the speed of his flight as well as his reaction time. Kurama was able to use the blonde's body to easily avoid the attacks. He then reared back a chakra-cloaked fist and punched aside a tentacle before going through hand signs. Futon Kaze no Yaiba. The powerful arc of wind and demon chakra served to augment the power of the attack. While the jutsu had only served to be capable of only making shallow strikes, thanks to Kurama's influence, the jutsu was now capable of completely severing the spearhead of the tentacle. Iris growled and channeled the chakra from Chomei and Fu in order to regenerate it, but it released a cry of pain as the residual divine lightning had damaged the chakra storage organ. Iris was now effectively crippled for a while. So your plan to disable its regeneration actually worked. I will admit I am impressed. Kurama thought. Shut up and hit it! Naruto's voice yelled out. Kurama nodded before hitting away the second tentacle with a chakra fist before gripping the tentacle in the bubbly clawed hand. The appendage increased in size in order to get a more suitable grip on the tentacle. Kurama then raised his Jinchuriki's free arm and brought it down in a chopping motion. Another powerful arc of wind sliced through the flesh and had green-blue blood spraying through the air. Iris roared in pain as its tentacles were once again severed. It then lashed out with its remaining two appendages. Spinning in the air, Kurama batted one away with his lengthy chakra tail, but the fourth crashed down on him, sending him rocketing through the trees before he formed his own personal crater in the ground. The trees were blown apart as Iris lashed out with its cloven feet, and Kurama was sent flying back once more due to the shock wave. With its prey once again in sight, Iris reared back its 2 remaining tentacles before stabbing them through the air. Kurama rose to his feet and got into a stable stance. He dug his chakra tail into the ground to act as an anchor before the 2 tentacles slammed down on his location. A massive shockwave spread out from the point of impact, and Naruto's Bijuu-possessed form was lost in the cloud of dust that formed. Iris's golden eyes glowed as it released a growl of satisfaction, but then the growl before an annoyed roar when the smoke cleared to reveal Kurama holding the 2 bone spears that lay at the end of the tentacles in the massive chakra hands of the fox cloak. "I'll be taking these," Kurama said as he began to pull at the spear tips. Iris released a roar of agony as flesh was torn apart, and with a sickening squelch, Kurama had ripped off the spear tips from the tentacles. Green-blue blood pooled at his feet, but he ignored it as he flew into the air and tossed his new weapons into the air. With a bestial roar, Kurama took off at a high speed before stabbing the spears through Iris's own chest. Blood sprayed through the air and Iris's cry of agony increased in volume. "Oh, shut up, will you?" Kurama snapped. He then gripped the bone spears and pushed them aside, pulling apart Iris's own flesh to reveal the inside of its chest. Once the split was large enough, Kurama leaped into the Kaiju's body and quickly made his way to the wall of bone that was the Kaiju's sternum. There, fused with the bone and bound by what looked like black blood vessels, lay an unconscious Fu. The vessels pulsed as red and blue chakra flowed along them, and with each pulsation, Fu released a small grunt of pain. Kurama quickly flew in front of the green-haired girl before gripping Fu by the sides of her head, using his fingers to pry open her closed eyes. "Get ready, Naruto." "All right." That was all the warning the blonde Jinchuriki got as the eyes of the Kyuubi no Yoko shone within the sockets of its Jinchuriki. The reaction was instantaneous, and Fu's orange eyes took on a reddish tint of their own before everything seemed to vanish in a flash of white light. COR. Joint mindscape. Naruto's eyes snapped open as he found himself within the familiar dimension of the mindscape where he had met Chomei and learned Fu's identity. The white floor looked a bit cracked, and the surrounding darkness seemed to swallow up the areas where the floor was not seen. The ground beneath him shook periodically, the source of said shaking sound akin to that of stomping feet. With each stomp, his body jumped a bit, and Naruto looked up to gaze upon the source of the shaking. His blue eyes widened when he saw the massive form of Iris standing before him, its golden eyes glowing with power. Held up by its 4 tentacles, the Kaiju held on to Chomei as the Nanabi also held close to its body with his tail. "Prepare yourself, Naruto." Naruto looked up and saw Kurama standing over him. A snarl was present on the massive Kitsun's face, his 9 tails whipping the air behind him. Naruto then registered Kurama's words and his blue eyes hardened as he focused on Iris. "The Raijuu's power does not descend to this level of consciousness, Naruto. Your Raijuu Arkekei Genkai will not be able to be used here." "Alright. So Kyuubi, you said there would be a plan?" "I got us into the inner mindscape of the Jinchuriki," Kurama stated. "Chomei and the moss-headed brat are currently being restricted by Iris's power, so we need to free them and then force Iris out of the mindscape. Don't mess up, brat." "Shut up, furball," Naruto shot back. Jinchuriki and Bijuu shifted into battle stances as Iris released a roar. Naruto formed the cross-shaped hand sign of his signature technique. Tajra Kagebunshin no Jutsu. 500 clones appeared before all that were present. The original Naruto and his clones then rushed through hand signs before pushing out their palms. Futon, Kami Oro Shur. A powerful blast of wind surged forth from the army of clones and their creator. Kurama then stepped forth, unintentionally crushing a few clones in the process. The massive Kitsune then reared back his head, inhaling a deep breath of air before exhaling a stream of red fire. The tongue of flame swirled with the massive windstorm and merged to create a storm of flame that barreled towards Iris. The golden-eyed Kaiju growled and then charged forwards. The flames exploded against its body, but Iris was shown to be unaffected by the attack before stamping on the clones and shoulder-tackling Kurama. The bijou growled as he recovered and slashed at Iris's face, knocking its head to the side before delivering a strong headbutt to the underside of its chin. His tails then lashed out and wrapped Iris around its wrists, ankles, waist and neck. With a mighty howl, the most powerful of the bijou hurled Iris through the air before exhaling a mighty blast of chakra and fire from his maw, and Iris fell as a smoking and burning mass. Luckily for Chomei, his exoskeleton was powerful enough to protect him and Fu from any danger while they were still in the ancient Kaiju's grasp. The Kaiju growled as it managed to flip itself in midair, and then a pulse of red chakra was unleashed from Chomei. The demonic energy flowed along Iris's tentacles and into its body, activating its high-speed regeneration ability. The burning flesh areas were quickly reverted back to normal before Iris reared its arms into the air and smashed them down on the ground. A shock wave of pure force raced towards the blonde Jinchuriki and red-furred bijou, but Naruto quickly leaped atop his bijou's head, and the kitsune roared to counter with his own shock wave. The two attacks of force met with a deafening boom, but Kurama charged forth and sent forth numerous spheres of pure red chakra from his mouth. Iris lashed out with its claws and tore apart the projectiles, but Kurama then reached towards the kaiju with his 9 tails and pulled Iris towards him only for Iris to kick with its cloven feet. The hooves slammed against Kurama's snout, earning a very canine-like yelp of pain. Kurama skidded backwards, but Naruto took a shot to attack by forming a Kaige Bunshin. He then grabbed the clone when it formed a Rasengan in its palm, and threw the copy. The clone soared through the air, aiming for the tentacles with the chakra sphere. Iris went to strike with its claws and tear apart the clone, but its eyes widened slightly when the clone vanished in a swirl of wind. Futon, Kaze Shunshin no Jutsu. The clone then reappeared above Iris's head and slammed the Rasengan down on its skull with explosive force. The original Naruto then held his hands up and formed the ram sign. Ninpu Bunshin Daibakuha. The clone then grabbed onto Iris's skull tightly, its body glowing with blue light as chakra built up within its core. The clone then exploded with the force of 5 exploding tags. However, Iris was barely affected by the explosion and instead released a roar of rage, drawing forth more chakra from Chomei. "It's getting a bit bigger every time it takes chakra from Chomei," Naruto said. "We have severed the connection and get Chomei out of there quickly," Kurama said. Naruto and Kurama's minds raced as they tried to think up a plan that would get the rather unstoppable kaiju to let go of the Nanabai no Kabutomushi, until the blonde's eyes brightened. "Kyubi, do you have anything explosively powerful in your arsenal besides fire breath and those small chakra bombs?" Kurama raised a non-existent eyebrow as he glanced up at the Jinchuriki on his head. Only a human would ask such a ridiculously idiotic question. He slammed his claws into the ground to take a stable stance before lifting his head and opening his mouth. His tails curled over his head and Naruto gripped the bijou's fur, watching in amazement as red and blue chakra bubbles appeared out of thin air, accumulating and condensing into a massive sphere of violet-black power. It was the exact same attack Fu had used when she was in her Jinchuriki state's 2nd stage, but much, much larger and obviously more powerful. However, Iris retaliated by charging up chakra and energy from in its chest before transferring it to its mouth. Kurama ate the chakra ball he created and his body bulged slightly, steam flowing out from the spaces between his teeth. When the two powerful beasts found that there was a big enough energy input for their attacks, they shot them forth. "Jaya!" Iris roared as it unleashed a powerful blast of golden energy that tore up the ground of the mindscape. "Bijudama!" Kurama roared and the sphere in his mouth stretched out in the form of a beam of crimson and white chakra and light. Its effects bore similar results to that of Iris's energy blast. The two attacks then collided and Kurama and Iris growled in annoyance at the resistance they felt before sending forth more chakra and energy into their attacks. The energy built up at the point of collision until it couldn't be contained any further, and a massive explosion rocked the joint mindscape of the Jinchuriki. A cloud of smoke and dust obscured the three combatants from each other, but it was then Naruto saw his chance. "Now Kyubi, get in close." Kurama stared up at his Jinchuriki with a growl. "Do not order me around, human!" Nevertheless, Kurama charged. His paws thundered against the mindscape's ground as he ripped through the smoke cloud. Iris's golden eyes widened when the Kyuubi was in its face. Kurama delivered a strong headbutt to the underside of Iris's head, hitting it against the chin with enough force to have the head snapping upwards. Kurama then fired a few chakra shots at its throat, causing the beast to release a gurgled cry of pain as flesh was torn apart. Now bind it! The powerful Bijuu quickly reared up on his hind legs and slashed with his forearms, his claws ripping through the flesh of the tentacles that held his sibling and said sibling's Jinchuriki. The tentacles fell to the ground with a dull-sounding thud while Chomei and his Jinchuriki crashed down. Kurama then bound the kaiju by wrapping his 9 tails around random areas of its body, mainly the limbs and neck. Kurama then fired off numerous more chakra shots, the red orbs exploding on contact against its chest and stomach. Iris released cries of pain from the continuous attacks. "Brat, let's finish it off now." "On it," Naruto replied to the Bijuu. He quickly formed 3 clones and he and one of the clones held out their hands as they each generated a Rasengan. "Alright, time to try out the new elemental versions. Put some wind in one and lightning in the other." The clones did as they were told, and as they did this, Kurama stretched his tails overhead once more, charging positive and negative chakra into his jaws. When the nature transformations were complete, the original Naruto held a small pale blue and white shuriken enclosing around the core of the Rasengan in his right hand, a high-pitched screeching accompanying its creation as the shuriken rotated rapidly around the core. The clone held what looked like a ball of unstable electrical energy, sparks of pure voltage bleeding off of it as it released a buzzing sound. The clones then gripped their creator and the Rasengan-wielding clone, and threw them roughly through the air. The original and clone Naruto then reared back their arms as they crashed down onto Iris's upper pair of eyes. "Futon, Rasengan! Raiton, Rasengan!" The Futon, Rasengan released a high-pitched screech as it dug into the left upper eye, tearing it and the eye socket itself to shreds as numerous tiny wind blades shredded the flesh and bone of the mental apparition's eye. The Raiton, Rasengan's effect was much more explosive as a deafening boom sounded throughout the joint mindscape, bolts of lightning completely destroying the upper right eye and blowing apart the upper right part of Iris's face. The clones puffed out of existence, and the original Naruto quickly flew up with his Bukujutsu and turned to Kurama. "Kurama, finish it!" Kurama released a mighty howl before firing off his attack. "Bijudama!" The beam of crimson and white energy blasted forth, and then crashed against Iris's chest. The mental apparition roared in pain as the chakra burned apart its chest, ripping apart the flesh before completely stabbing through the bone. The force of the attack continued to tear its way through Iris's body before its back appeared to bulge. The back then burst apart, and the Bijudama beam tore through Iris, through and through. A large gaping hole was revealed before the kaiju fell to its knees, then collapsed face first against the ground of the mindscape. Iris's body then glowed before dispersing into a burst of shadow and golden energy. Kurama and Naruto then began to fade out of the mindscape along with Chomei and Fu. Cor. Forest, outside of Takigakure no Sato. Fu groaned as she began to stir from her slumber. Her eye muscles clenched tightly before she opened them, and her orange orbs became wide when she found herself meeting the sapphire orbs of her fellow Jinchuriki. The white-clad Kunoichi looked down to see Naruto was holding her bridal style, standing atop a tree and smiling brightly at her. "Good to see you're okay, Mosshead," the blonde jokingly greeted her. "Goldilocks? Naruto?" Fu looked around before her eyes fell upon the massive form of Iris. "By Kami-sama, what the hell is that thing?" "That is Iris. It's a race of beings known as Kaiju, and it feeds on the negative energy and chakra of the living things around it. For some reason, you were in your four-tailed state, and judging from the fact that Bijuu chakra activates mostly under negative emotional stimuli, you woke up Iris after Erokyofu managed to stop you with a seal. Though, that thing ended up assimilating you into its body to use as a source of nutrition, and thanks to Chomei it was easily able to reach the size it is currently at now." Naruto's explanation had Fu gazing up at her fellow Jinchuriki in shock. She gulped audibly as everything came back to her. "It's all my fault," she muttered. Naruto tilted his head in confusion. "Why would you say that?" "It was my jealousy and anger towards you for always being so optimistic. Even though we're both Jinchuriki, you always have to be so happy, and I couldn't accept that. You, being a Jinchuriki, yet manage to act the way you do while people like me have to live in fear and isolation from the rest of the world. I envied and despised you, and then I remembered the artifact I was supposed to guard in the great tree. It glowed, some kind of weird worm came out, which was probably what that iris thing used to be. It fed on my emotions, and then I blacked out after that. I guess everything I blacked out on was when I went into my Jinchuriki mode and you said I fought you. Fu glanced down at the forest ground with a sad expression, tears lining her eyes. I really am a demon for bringing this thing into existence. Mosshead, just shut up, Naruto said as his fierce blue eyes bore into her bright orange ones. Like I told you before, you are not a demon. Your emotions may have brought about this situation, but it doesn't matter because you can't change what's already happened. I didn't save you from that thing in order for me to hear you wallow in your own guilt. Why you saved me? Fu asked. Naruto nodded stiffly without a second thought. Of course I did, Naruto exclaimed. Why? Because I saw people die before my eyes. I had the power to save them, and yet they still died. Naruto gritted his teeth as he remembered his mission involving Mio. I won't let that happen again, and I sure as hell won't let it happen to you of all people. You're a Jinchuriki like me, and I will not stand for you wallowing in your own self-pity. Get it through your thick skull that you are not alone anymore, Mosshead. More tears collected at the edge of her eyes before they finally began to spill over. The tears traced down her cheeks as she latched onto Naruto's chunin flak jacket and allowed her tears to fall, staining the material with them. I was going to thank you, but now you made me cry. Stupid Goldilocks. Naruto's expression changed from anger mixed with annoyance to amusement as Fu's body shook with each sob she made. No problem, Mosshead. Naruto then set Fu down on one of the thicker branches of the upper part of the tree he was standing on. A clear view of Iris was laid out before them, and Naruto lifted Fu's head up so she could look at him. Now wipe away those tears because the fight's not over. You're about to see something badass happen. You better come back alive, you shitty Goldilocks. Naruto released a toothy grin as he glanced at Fu before nodding his head. Naruto then bent his legs and channeled chakra throughout his body, leaping through the air before landing down in the clearing Iris had created. The kaiju rose to its feet, and its yellow eyes shone within its sockets. The temporary damage Naruto had dealt to its chakra storage organ had lost its effect, and soon chakra raced throughout its body, and the tentacles it had once lost were completely regrown, and not only that, but Iris was bigger. Before Fu was removed, Iris had taken enough of Komiai's chakra to increase its size so that it now stood at the immense height of 175 feet. Naruto bit his thumb so that blood would flow, and he swiped the blood across his palms and down his forearms before running through the necessary hand signs. Boar. Dog. Bird. Monkey. Ram. Naruto slammed both hands down on the ground, and a storm of seals raced down from his forearms to the ground before spreading outwards. The crimson chakra of his bijou melded with his own blue chakra as he performed the jutsu. Kuchios no Jutsu. A massive boom was heard, followed by a gargantuan cloud of smoke. Fu watched in awe as her fellow Jinchuriki performed the art of summoning, but her orange eyes widened even further when the smoke cleared to reveal what the boy's summon was. Her eyes climbed up from the base of the massive summon, climbing steadily upwards as she began to unintentionally memorize every detail of the summoned kaiju. The sharp claws that dug into the earth were attached to a pair of massive feet, which were in turn attached to the muscular, thick legs of the beast. Her orange eyes shifted when she saw the tip of the tail, and followed the row of silvery black spines that appeared to look like dorsal fins, though much more jagged and menacing looking. Its powerful arms had hands each bearing 5 sharp claws, and its powerful chest rose and fell with each deep breath it took. In comparison to the rest of its body, dark green scales had changed to become a darker shade with a tint of black and dark gray. Standing shorter than Iris at a height of 150 feet, the entirety of its body, even its eyelids, were covered in dark green scales that held a dark gray-black tint to it. The massive reptile curled its lips into a ferocious snarl to reveal the rows of sharper and longer teeth, and its eyes snapped open to show the golden orbs that glowed with power. Silence reigned supreme for a moment as the gargantuan reptile stared at its opponent. It reared back its head, a small growl building up in volume with its throat. Then, Gojira roared. The powerful and loud roar echoed across the land and through the atmosphere to let all who heard it know just how powerful it was just by sound alone. Fu stared in shock at Gojira, but she couldn't help the wide grin that spread across her face. Badass, she muttered. Iris's 4 eyes glowed with power of its own before it released its screech-like roar. The 2 kaiju circled one another, trees falling and being crushed in the process of the 2 powerful beasts sizing each other up. Learning from his time in the Chunin exams in Kirigakure, during his fight with Megumi and her lion boss summon, Shishio, Naruto now knew to get off of Gojira before the fight would start. He landed atop a tree before taking a deep breath. Kick its ass, Gojira! He shouted to the reptilian kaiju. Gojira nodded and then roared once again. The battle began and both kaiju charged at one another. Their arms reared back and then their hands clashed with a devastating shockwave occurring between them. Their claws interlocked, and the 2 aimed to push the other back. Iris had a 20-foot height advantage, but Gojira was the superior beast in terms of physical strength. With a roar, Gojira pushed back against Iris, causing the ancient kaiju to dig trenches in the ground and scatter trees as it was pushed back. Gojira then gave one last powerful push, letting Iris stumble back before a flash of green light seemed to travel up its spines. Gojira opened its jaws before expelling a powerful blast of emerald flame. Iris quickly reacted and raised its arms, crossing them in front of its body. The fire blast generated a massive explosion that wrapped Iris in a cloud of smoke. Gojira stared at the cloud for a moment, its golden eyes watching for any signs of its opponent's movements through the smoke. Gojira's eyes then widened as one of Iris's tentacles raced out of the cloud. Gojira grunted as the spear-tipped appendage crashed against its chest, but Iris released a growl of what seemed to be surprise when it saw that Gojira's scales were not pierced through in the slightest. The 4-eyed kaiju released a screech-like roar one more time before lashing out with another tentacle that struck Gojira in the stomach. The massive reptile backpedaled from the force of the strike before sidestepping the 3rd strike and ducking under the 4th. Gojira then pushed upwards to its knees and opened its jaws, biting down on the tentacle. Iris growled in pain as Gojira began to pull, aiming to rip off the appendage. Iris aimed to stop Gojira with another strike of one of its tentacles, but Gojira quickly raised one of its arms and grabbed the tentacle in a tight grip, its sharp claws digging into the mass of flesh. With a growl, Gojira then unleashed a burst of green fire from its jaws. The flames traveled up the length of the tentacle and Iris released a roar of pain as it was being burned. Gojira then jerked its head and pulled at the tentacle in its arm. To Iris's surprise, Gojira had pulled it forward. Iris stumbled across the land, breaking apart earth and foliage before Gojira delivered a sharp jab to the chest. Iris backpedaled from the force of the strike only to be hit again when the reptile followed up with a ferocious right hook. A left hook followed after, but Iris slapped Gojira across the face with one of its tentacles before raising up its 2 upper tentacles and slammed them down with terrific force. Gojira grunted and was forced down to its knees, the ground cratering from the force of the strike. However, Gojira powered through the pain and quickly rose back to its feet and delivered a powerful headbutt that had Iris's head snapping upwards from the force. The kaiju of Kuri spun on its heels and its thick, heavy tail crashed against Iris's ribs. The resounding crack of bones echoed through the air as Iris was sent skidding to the side, but Gojira was not done. Gojira charged forwards and barreled into its opponent. Iris gripped onto Gojira's shoulders in an effort to try and push back the physically stronger kaiju, but to no avail, as Gojira forced Iris to skid backwards. A trail of destruction marked the path of the 2 kaiju, not that they would need a marking considering their respectively massive sizes. Taking advantage of the close proximity, Gojira tilted its head upwards and bit down on Iris's neck. Blood flowed from the wounds, staining Gojira's teeth with green-blue, and the reptilian beast seemed to take on a more ferocious persona for a brief moment upon tasting it on its tongue. Gojira gripped Iris by the shoulders and, while keeping its grip on Iris's neck, pushed the taller kaiju down. Neck flesh was ripped off and the ancient kaiju roared in agony as blood splattered across the ground and it collided with the earth with ground-shaking force. Chakra then pulsed across Iris's body, its regenerative healing coming into play, albeit it was noticeably slower. Gojira stood tall and a flash of green light trailed up its spines before emerald flames began to flow from its jaws. However, the ground beneath Gojira rumbled and the lower tentacles of Iris were shown to have burrowed beneath the earth in order to catch the mighty lizard off guard. The tentacles struck Gojira in the throat, causing the reptile's eyes to widen in surprise and pain, its throat closing up temporarily from the sudden strike. Gojira clutched its throat, coughing air and embers across the battlefield before being whipped across the face, sending its head snapping to the left and right in quick succession. Gojira roared and exhaled a burst of emerald fire, but Iris's tentacles wrapped themselves around the scaly Kaiju's legs and pulled. Gojira fell to the ground, its fire tearing across the landscape in a random direction before causing a massive explosion that left a large smoking crater in the previously forested area. Gojira pulled at the tentacles around its legs before breathing out a column of fire, burning the appendages. However, Iris powered through the pain and then lashed out with one of its tentacles to stab at Gojira's throat once more with the spear-tipped end. Its attack being paralyzed once more, Gojira found its throat wrapped around by the tentacle. The 150-foot kaiju was then caught by surprise when Iris, with much effort on its part, lifted Gojira into the air with its tentacles and then tossed it. Iris's eyes glowed and a golden energy flowed from the ancient kaiju's chest to its beak-like mouth. Iris then opened its jaws and fired off concentrated spheres of golden energy at its falling enemy. Gojira roared in pain as it was struck numerous times in the chest, and with a mighty crash, the powerful reptile slammed onto the ground. A massive shockwave raced across the battleground and ripped apart the parts of the earth that were caught in it. Cor. Naruto could only gaze in amazement at the battle that unfolded before his very eyes. Never in his life would he have thought to see giant monsters like these fight with such tenacity and ferocity. If this was a movie, I would totally watch it, Naruto muttered to himself before becoming serious. But that thing won't stay down. Gojira could possibly pull off a win, but it would just get back up. Naruto turned when he felt someone land on his branch. He turned around and looked to see his perverted godfather standing behind him. Naruto, that was an amazing move to pull Iris out of the village, get Fu out and summon Gojira to hold it off, but… I know! Naruto interrupted his godfather. Iris won't go down, and it will never stay down until we do something. What are we going to do then? Jiraiya asked. Because I may be a wise sage, but when it comes to these kaiju things, I've got nothing. Naruto closed his eyes and he quickly placed himself inside his mindscape. His mental self then appeared before the giant bars of the cage that held his inner demon. Kamina! I'm here, Naruto. A flash of lightning appeared out of nowhere to reveal the white and blue-furred beast. The Raijuu looked to his student with a serious expression that mirrored that of said students. What do you need? I need an idea. Do you know anything at all that could be used to stop Iris? You said that it was practically immortal because of how it constantly absorbs chakra. Gojira doesn't use chakra, so it's been safe from that ability, and its scales helped immensely, but the battle is going to drag out forever if we don't find a way to put down Iris. Well, Iris was only stopped through sealing. Like the Bijou, Iris is a very powerful being that cannot be defeated indefinitely. It can lose the battle, but the war will not be over. So use your Fuinjutsu. The question is, do you have anything that can stop Iris? Naruto was silent at the Raiju's question. He wasn't nearly as well versed in the sealing arts to be capable of stopping something of this magnitude. Actually, you do. Kurama spoke as he opened his eyes. Naruto's and Kamina's eyes widened at Kyuubi's words, both snapping their heads in the direction of the mighty Kitsune as he stepped into the dim light of the mindscape. I do? He does. Kurama nodded as he looked straight at Naruto. It is not Fuinjutsu, but it was a hybrid due to its nature. The Uzumaki blood flows very strongly through your system. You know the story of your mother, how her chakra was very unique and capable of having the ability to subdue the Bijou, myself included. It was why she was chosen to be my Jinchuriki after Mito. Her special chakra was capable of manifesting itself physically as chains of chakra, and you are capable of performing this feat as well, Naruto. Kurama explained. But Iris feeds on chakra through those tentacles, Naruto argued. It can even feed off of Bijuu chakra. Then use the Raijus, Kurama replied curtly. Remember, you used the Raijuu arc in order to paralyze its chakra absorption abilities, which allowed for you to carry out your plans to get you this far. Iris is a kaiju of demonic origin if divine chakra can affect, so all you have to do, make these chakra chains and infuse them with Kamina's chakra, Naruto finished. I could also use a linkage seal coupled with a stabilizing seal to keep the chains active for as long as I want. Kurama, you're a genius! You cannot use my name just yet, brat, Kurama growled. But I will let this one go since you admitted to the fact that I am a superior intellectual. You didn't come up with the Fuinjutsu part though, Kamina commented. Hold your tongue, Raijuu, Kurama snarled. Naruto ignored the clashing wills of demonic and divine entities before grinning widely as he vanished from his mindscape. He had a plan to make with Jiraiya, and it was totally going to work. COR. Once the landscape finished reshaping itself, Iris climbed back to its feet and then golden energy charged up in its mouth once more. Gojira climbed back to its feet, a line of green blood flowing from its lips as well as a noticeable bloody area on the upper left area of its chest. Gojira growled and then unleashed a roar in rage. Picking up trees from around it, Gojira hurled the pieces of foliage at its enemy, but they had no effect on Iris's durable and partially armored body. Gojira then dug its claws into the ground and with a mighty roar, pulled out a piece of rock that was about twice the size of its head. Gojira hurled the rock through the air and Iris went to deflect the piece of stone only for Gojira to fire off a stream of emerald flame. Iris crossed its tentacles in front of its body to protect itself from the shards of burning rock as the piece of earth was shattered into pieces. Gojira then fired off another blast of fire that washed over Iris's form, sending the ancient kaiju skidding backwards, but Iris countered by firing off a shot of golden energy from its beak-like jaws. A powerful explosion rocked the land and Gojira leaped into the air, going into a series of front flips as it fell. Gojira smashed down on the ground and a powerful shockwave tore the earth asunder and sent Iris skidding backwards before roaring in pain as a blast of fire nailed it in the chest. Iris's golden eyes glowed with rage before firing off an orb of golden energy. Gojira raised one of his arms to block the rapidly moving attack, but the force of the strike knocked away the arm and sent it backpedaling. Another shot hit the right shoulder, which had Gojira backpedaling ever further before a third and more powerful shot had Gojira sailing through the air as it collided explosively. Gojira rolled with the fall and then rose back up before unleashing a torrent of fire. The flames tore up the earth as Gojira adjusted the angle of its attack before hitting Iris in the chest, which had the ancient kaiju roaring in pain. Gojira then rushed its opponent, and the two clashed physically once more. Gojira dealt a strong punch to the stomach, but Iris whacked Gojira in the face with a tentacle before slashing the side of its face with its claws. Gojira rotated with the blow and its heavy tail and Iris against its ribs before it slashed Iris numerous times across the face and chest, flesh and blood flying every which way. Iris quickly stamped its feet down on the ground to keep its body stable before pushing Gojira back with a headbutt. The reptile was disoriented for a moment, and Iris then dealt a flurry of stabbing blows to Gojira's body, making the reptilian kaiju bleed a bit when some of the spear-tipped tentacles managed to break through the scales after a few successive strikes. Gojira roared and tackled its opponent, sending both falling to the ground, but Iris quickly tucked its legs in and kicked Gojira off with its cloven feet. The hooved kaiju roared as it charged up numerous spheres of golden energy that hovered in front of its body before being launched. Gojira skidded as it landed before a flash of green light raced up its spines. With a devastating roar, the mighty beast of the demon's hunting ground swept its head from side to side while breathing its green flames and caused a series of explosions to dot the skies above. The four-eyed ancient kaiju roared in annoyance before lashing out numerous times with its tentacles before chakra and energy built up within its body, rerouting nearly the entirety of the chakra flow that activated its regeneration ability. Iris's chest was flooded with golden light. A low humming began to sound as the energy built up. Gojira snarled, baring its blood-stained fangs at its opponent before green light raced up its spines rapidly. It opened its jaws as fire condensed into a powerful sphere. With simultaneous roars, the two mighty beasts unleashed their attacks. The beam of golden energy shot forth from Iris's chest, while Gojira exhaled a torrent of emerald fire. Time seemed to slow down as the two attacks neared each other, growing closer and closer before they finally clashed. A deafening boom echoed across the landscape, and a mighty shockwave further tore the earth asunder as the two kaiju tried to overwhelm the other. Iris's eyes glowed brightly as it stopped the chakra going into its regeneration ability and pushed it into its plasma chest beam. Gojira growled as it felt itself being pushed back slightly, but it still held strong. Green light continued to race up its spines, but Gojira continued to try and push more power out of itself. And suddenly, without any sort of knowing, Gojira underwent an internal change. In nature, living organisms undergo certain changes in or outside of their bodies in order to better survive in the harsh natural world. For the kaiju, these beasts can sometimes undergo rapid changes in even short moments. During the course of its period of maturation, Gojira has shown to have increased physical capabilities, its muscles, bones and scales growing harder, bigger, and stronger. Now within the mighty reptile's body was an organ in its stomach that generated mass quantities of energy, but the energy requires a certain amount of time to build up. This energy travels along specific organic energy coils that start at the tip of the tail, traversing all the way up Gojira's back and neck before accumulating within its mouth. This energy is then expelled in the form of green fire, but is actually highly condensed energy that appears to look like fire. The internal change Gojira immediately underwent was a maturation of this energy-producing organ. The organ gained a faster production rate, as well as increasing in size so more power would be outputted. To those that watched this clash of titans, Gojira's spines, which flashed green light, suddenly began to release an audible humming sound, the green light of the energy darkening and becoming a shining blue which could be seen through the translucent areas of the spines. And so, with greater power at its disposal, Gojira unleashed it. The green flames condensed to become a powerful force that took on a beautiful shade of sapphire. The blast of raging blue energy scorched the very air around it before it began to push back Iris's attack. The ancient kaiju roared as it tried to fight back, but with Gojira's better and stronger energy blast, Iris stood no chance of regaining an advantage. Soon, the blaze of blue ripped through the golden beam, tearing it in two before crashing into Iris's body. The tentacled kaiju released a roar of pain as it flew through the air before crashing down into the ground, accompanied by a massive explosion of light and a mushroom-shaped dust cloud. The shockwave that raced across the battleground was larger than any of the others, and the sound was positively deafening. A few moments passed as the mushroom cloud dispersed into mere wisps of dust, and the light died away. Iris's form was burned, green-blue blood stained the cauterized wound in its chest. One its arms was bent at an angle it shouldn't have been bent at, especially since a piece of bone was protruding from a part of its upper arm area. Its 4 tentacles were completely burned away to the muscle fibers, laying limply on the ground like dead snakes. The ancient kaiju growled as it aimed to rise to its feet, its non-broken arm shaking heavily as it tried to lift up the entirety of the weight of its upper body. The struggle was brought to a swift end when Gojira's massive foot smashed down on its already injured body, and Gojira panted heavily as green blood flowed from the wounds it had received. Gojira's eyes glowed as it turned its head to the sky before releasing a roar of victory. The thunderous sounds reverberated through the air as the victorious kaiju stood over its fallen foe. Only another force of nature can defeat another force of nature, Naruto muttered to himself as he watched his summon end its roar. The blonde then turned to his sensei and nodded. "Ero Kyofu, let's go." "Alright, and stop calling me that," the white-haired man snapped. Naruto and Jiraiya then landed on the ground before Naruto held out his hands, calling upon the chakra needed to go through with his Raijuu arc abilities. Wind and lightning swirled and sparked around his body. "Okay, remember what I said, Naruto." Jiraiya spoke softly as he prepared the necessary reinforcement seals to perform Naruto's plan. Pretending the chakra is an extension of yourself. Gather the chakra from your tenketsu, channel it through your body, and when it reaches the end. Naruto's eyes snapped open and Jiraiya spoke the last 2 words. "Release it!" "Ha! Naruto released a pulse of chakra from his body, and from the palm of his hands, massive chains of bright white and blue chakra shot forth. They dug into the ground in a spectacular show of power before wrapping themselves around Iris's form. The ancient kaiju roared in pain as the celestial chakra burned against its body, restraining the massive creature. Jiraiya then took out the finished seal tags and slapped them down. The linkage seal acted to keep an invisible link between Naruto and the chains as they broke off, and the stabilizing seal served to keep the chains active so long as Naruto didn't run out of chakra, which was practically impossible at this point in his life, or if he died, really big if right there. Naruto then reached into his weapons pouch and took out a storage seal tag. Pumping chakra into the tag, a massive scroll that was the same size as the summoning scroll Jiraiya had, appeared in his hands in a puff of smoke. He then unfurled the scroll to reveal a very complex-looking seal array. Jiraiya's eyes widened as he looked at it. "You finished it?" he asked. "Indeed I have. My own original fuinjutsu based off of the sealing method you used to seal Itachi's Amaterasu flames when we went to go look for Bachan," Naruto said. He applied chakra to the seal and then it activated. The space in front of the seal suddenly began to swirl and twist, as if space and time itself were being torn and bent to the will of Naruto's seal. Suddenly, Iris's body began to swirl into the vacuum created by the seal. Once the entirety of the massive kaiju's body disappeared into the vortex, the seal closed automatically and the scroll was returned back to the storage seal tag. Naruto nodded in satisfaction. "Fuinjutsu, Fushinkuhoin. That was just, wow," Fuz said as she dropped down to the ground from the trees. She ran up to Naruto and paused as she looked him over, eyeing the blood that covered his body from the wounds that healed or were still healing. "How did you? That was just, I can't even." Naruto chuckled at Fuz's inability to form a complete sentence. "Told you that you'd see something badass," the blonde told his fellow Jinchuriki. The Jinchuriki of the Nanabai stared at the blue-eyed boy for a moment before smirking. "It was alright since it came from you, Goldilocks. Since it's coming from you, Mosshead, I'll take what I can get. Look, as much as I would like to watch my student get his game on with you." "Get my game on?" Naruto asked. The green-haired girl glared at Jiraiya for saying such a thing before flipping him off. "What are we going to do with this thing now that we won?" Everyone looked to Iris's new residence, aka the seal tag, as it lay there in Naruto's hand. The reptilian kaiju also looked to its summoner to see what he wanted to do. Gojira could have just as easily ended the life of its fellow force of nature, but since Naruto was in range of being turned into nothing but ash, it waited for an order to burn the magic paper into smithereens. Naruto glanced at Iris's seal with some thought. He then glanced at Gojira and back to the seal tag, repeating the process a few more times before smirking confidently, the sparkle of mischief present in those sapphire orbs as well. The next 3 words he said shocked everyone present as his trademark foxy grin then spread out onto his face. "I'll tame it." Jiraiya paused for a moment as he looked at Naruto. The 3 shinobi stared at the blonde before a loud barking laughter came out of the Sanin's mouth as he patted the blonde's head. "Oh, that was really funny, Naruto. Come on, seriously, what are you going to do?" The old man stared at the blonde's blank face before he felt a drip of sweat hit his forehead. "Oh, Kami, you're serious?" "Of course I am, why wouldn't I be? Have you forgotten the battle of the century that ended just minutes ago?" "Ero Kyofu, shut up, there is no need to yell," Naruto said before he opened up the scroll. "I would think I know how to handle this. I have a kaiju of my own as a personal summon. I don't see a problem as having another on my side. Besides, I don't think it intentionally attacked us for a reason." "Oh really? Then tell me, Naruto, why would it attack us?" the older man said. "It was defending itself that caught the veteran shinobi off guard, as well as the 2 next to him. Its main source of food was chakra. Take it for granted it might have been threatened by other forces. It defended itself. When it got sealed, it became enraged, and when it came out it lashed out in both defense and hostility. It's a sentient being that was threatened by humans before. Who do you think its target would be after be free for so long?" Naruto simply put. "And beside, it's almost like a bijou and a jinchuriki," Fu said softly. The two shinobi looked over at Fu with wide eyes while Naruto nodded in agreement. A life of being hated and feared by humanity and other beings for something out of its own control. Slowly it begins to have a distrust and hatred against other races. He placed his hand on the seal and smirked. Perhaps if I can show it I mean no harm, I can bond with it. With the help of Gojira I can calm its anger, he said as he turned around and channeled chakra to the seal. Are you sure this is wise, Naruto? Kamina asked warily. Iris is something not to be trifled with. She is a force that was feared like all other kaiju. I am sure. Besides, he smiled as he released the seal. What better way to show that I want its companionship than to not fear it at all? The vortex from the seal expanded as the large body mass of the sealed kaiju appeared, the creature lying on the ground before it gave a violent hiss as it stood upright. The creature gave a mighty roar, but lowered its body, still feeling the aftermath of the battle. It stared at the blonde Jinchuriki and gave a low snarl, eyes glowing as it focused on the blonde. I don't fear you, Iris. I know you can understand me. Naruto said loudly. I understand you are angry. But there is no reason to be angry anymore. You were just trying to survive and protect yourself. However, you took my friend and hurt the people of this village, which is something I will not tolerate. I will understand your anger against humans. They sealed you, they hunted you down. That is something I am very familiar with, which is why I ask you to be part of my summoning pact. A wild hiss came out of Iris before the blonde raised his hand up and his eyes narrowed. I will not use you for my personal gain, only when I am in need of your help. You can roam these lands as long as you wish. However, you must only feed on the natural chakra that is around this land, never the humans. You must also never attack any human or human villages that you come across. His hand lowered as he smiled lightly. If you do this, then I promise I will find you a place where you can roam truly free, and you will have a friend and partner in me. Iris gave a low clicking tone as it lowered its head, coming closer to Naruto as it stared at the blonde with a heavy stare, blue eyes staring at four glowing yellow eyes. She could see in the eyes of Naruto the fearless prowess that he held for her. She slowly gave a low snort of air. A low growl behind her made her lose focus of the blonde, and she quickly turned over to see the kaiju that she had fought. The reptilian growled at her while she gave a low screech and clicked, almost as if she was communicating with him. Naruto and the others stared at the two kaiju for what was like minutes before the two great beasts stopped chattering and Iris turned its head and stared at the blonde. Slowly gave a low huff before it nudged the blonde with the tip of its massive beak and gave a low clicking sound. Naruto paused softly before raising his hand to touch the nose of the creature, who gave a soft click. Naruto gazed at the giant behind the giant lizard. When he saw a slight growl and the baring of teeth like it was giving a smile, Naruto chuckled and smiled himself before looking back at Iris. Welcome to the crew, Iris. Chapter 13 Homecoming. It had been 2 weeks since the large clash between the two mighty kaiju, Gojira and Iris. The aftermath of the fight left the village of Taki in a crippled position. The destruction the two massive creatures produced was massive and horrendous. Nevertheless, the villagers and ninja of Taki were strong-willed and held determination, focusing on the rebuilding of their home. Granted, it did help having the legendary Jiraiya and his apprentice assisting them. Needless to say, everyone prayed to Kami in thanks for Naruto and his gifted usage of Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. With everyone cooperating together, the construction was going rather smoothly. So smoothly that Shibuki saw this as an opportunity to expand the village of Taki. However, the damage Taki took was semi-permanent. The loss of the shinobi affected the people of the hidden waterfall greatly and impacted its economic development drastically. Takigakure was a hidden village that began much later than what had been deemed the Big Five, and its development had later on become only slim after the loss of their prized kenjutsu, the Jiangu, which was left in the hands of their nukenin, Kakuzu, as well as the coup from the past years. With the terrain they lived in, the lack of manpower, and the shadow of the 5 great villages growing larger, they struggled to receive income and the support they needed. Now, following the death of some of the most prominent shinobi in the village during the battle against Iris, it was going to be even more difficult for Taki and its leader to stabilize their economy. Another thing that Shibuki had the pleasure of dealing with was explaining what exactly happened to citizens and the Shinobi Council. Immediately, the council members wanted to blame the situation on Fu. Being the Jinchuriki easily made her the scapegoat in their eyes. He explained to them that it wasn't the green-haired Kunoichi's fault, arguing that it was quite the opposite. Because of their actions towards her, it led to the awakening of an ancient creature that was sealed in the great tree which she was tasked to protect and watch over by Shibuki's father. Shibuki laid out his decision of putting her in the hands of Konoha for better care for the girl, hoping to get them to agree with his plan, and hopefully give her a home she deserved where people would grow to acknowledge her. And most of the council members followed through with his idea. The key word being most. While the majority of the members were overjoyed with the idea, the more battle-hardened members of the council argued that handing their Jinchuriki off to another village would cripple their strength as a shinobi village and give up their advantage if they ever entered into war. Their statement brought up many concerns from the council members, and the masses began to murmur and question Shibuki. Shibuki knew this would possibly occur and had prepared for this by pulling out his trump card. He countered that he wouldn't just give up Fu and the Nanabi without receiving something in return. He brought up that within his negotiations with Tsunade, he discussed that in turn of giving up Fu they would get an influx of natural resources from countries allied to Konoha and a few number of Chunin and Jonin to help out with the growth of Taki's shinobi force, symbolizing a newfound strength as allies between the two. With the announcement of this new treaty and the benefits they would gain quickly trifled the cost they would pay for it all. For most of the counselors, this spelled profit and a means of increasing Taki's reputation. The Takigakure shinobi commander and the INT commanders envisioned the expansion of their shinobi techniques and tactics, opening up new opportunities and branches for the village's power. After every council member agreed with Shibuki's treaty, he went back to his office, currently finalizing Fu's departure papers and triple-checking the print on the documents to make sure he understood everything. Shibuki sighed, massaging his temples, wiping away the sweat that seeped through his pores. He gathered the papers and sealed them inside the unfolded scroll they laid on. Just then a Jonin appeared in front of him on one knee before him. "You called for me, Shibuki-sama?" Shibuki lifted his head from his desk and smiled as his eyes lay upon the shinobi kneeling before him. This Jonin was one of his most trusted and loyal shinobi, Daito Yukui. "Yes, Daito, I need you to bring Fu and Naruto here." The ninja nodded his head without hesitation and left swiftly via Shunshin. Cor. Takigakure no Sato, the Great Tree. Lying next to the stump of the great tree was a very exhausted Naruto Uzumaki, and a chilled Fu savoring the breeze of the wind flowing smoothly against her lime-green hair. The two 15-year-olds were enjoying each other's company and getting to know each other during their downtime. Naruto scratched the back of his head with heat rushing to his cheeks as Fu laughed at him. "You seriously did that?" "Yeah, as he was about to take me out for the count, I just had to release it, and it stunned him. After that I used one of my trademark abilities." Fu continued to laugh loudly, clutching her stomach as she felt her ribs beginning to hurt. "It's not that funny, you know," he pouted, crossing his arms and pouting. The Taki Kunoichi looked at her fellow Jinchuriki as she wiped away the tears from her laughter, finally managing to calm herself down. "So you're telling me that winning a fight by farting in someone's face isn't funny at all?" Fu asked. Naruto opened his mouth to speak, but words failed to come forth as he thought about it. Fu smirked. "Face it, Goldilocks, that's pretty damn funny." "Hee, I'd have to agree with the girl, that's pretty funny." "Ugh, not you too, Kamina-sensei. I will admit that it isn't one of my proudest moments, but I'm much stronger than what I was back then. Thanks to me and that perverted godfather of yours." Naruto mentally grinned at Kamina. "Like you have any room to talk, Raijuu." The divine being stuttered over his words, trying to voice a comeback. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Oh really now? Huh, that's strange because I remember someone mumbling in their sleep about." "Hey! I thought we agreed that we never talk about that." "I'm sorry, Sensei, I just don't know what you're talking about." Naruto mocked the lightning beast with utmost innocence. Kamina grumbled in response to Naruto, earning a laugh from the teen and a chuckle from Kurama within his cage. "Seems the Gaki has blackmail on you, Raijuu. Must really sting against your divine pride, nay?" he asked rhetorically as he barked with laughter. Kamina narrowed his eyes at the fox and growled before he huffed at the tailed beast's words and looked at Naruto with an evil glint. "Okay, be that way. I'll remember this during your next training session. I'll make sure train you into the ground. Naruto stopped laughing, stumbling over his words. What? No, wait. Kamina-sensei, I was just. You better return focus. Kurama stated. The girl is talking to you. Hello? Earth to Goldilocks. Fu yelled, breaking the blonde from his conversation with the divine being and his inner demon. Huh? I asked you what it's like in Konoha? Oh. Well, Konoha is very beautiful, with a lot of trees surrounding it, much like Taki, and the people there are nice too. There's Iruka-sensei, Tuchi Aji-san, I am Ne-san, and all my other friends who I graduated with. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be as strong as I am today. Fu stared at the blonde and smirked. Oh really, huh? Probably got lucky with being a shinobi then if you had that much help. Naruto scratched his head with guilt and chuckled sadly. Yeah, I was kind of a slacker, actually more on the lines of the underdog and the dead last of my class. It took me 3 times to actually graduate, all because I couldn't do a single bunshin. That's stupid. Fu stated bluntly, her fellow Jinchuriki blinking olishly at her sudden statement. It's stupid that you had to pass by doing a bunshin. I mean, I don't know the shinobi education system of Konoha, but it just seemed like you were given something easy compared to our education. I'm not saying that learning bunshin isn't necessary, but it wasn't our biggest requirement. In order for us to pass the academy, we had to do well in 2 of the 3 main skills of being a ninja, but we also had to learn a taki technique. I passed mine in ninjutsu and taijutsu, and then I surprised my teachers by doing the taki version of Mizuno Ken, which is a B-rank jutsu. I would have probably graduated if the exam was like that in Konoha. Back then I was just a brawler, but with my large supply of chakra, I think my Keijubunshin or learning a jutsu would have helped me on my ninjutsu part. Yeah, that's true, it's a gift of being a Jinchuriki, you know? Fu said with a faint smile before lowering her head. Do you think people will like me over there? HM? In Konoha? Fu nodded at the blonde's question before the blonde gave a faint smirk for his thoughts and grunted before he looked to the sky. You know, I don't think people will judge you once they get to know you. I think once people see the real you, they have nothing to worry about. The people are kind, and the shinobi are respectable. Once you meet my friends and the people I know, I will have no doubt people will like you. Naruto gave her a reassuring smile. After all, they accepted me. I don't think they will judge you if they found out about you. How can you be sure? Naruto looked over to the mint-haired female and flashed her his trademark foxy grin. You'll just have to trust my word, now won't you? He said softly, looking back to the sky, thinking of the future of his next journey. Main gates Konohagaku no Sato. 2 years, 1 month later. The wondrous village of Konoha. The first of many villages to emerge after the era of clan wars and become one of the 5 strongest villages throughout the elemental nations. The village itself flourished and was surrounded by life. Trees stood tall and firm, birds sang songs of joy, the winds danced, even the sun shone brightly upon Konoha. People strolled along their merry way, following their routinely peaceful lives. However, none of them, except a select few, knew that today was a special day. 2 Chunin, Kotetsu Higain and Izumo Kamizuki were stationed to watch and traffic the many people who entered and exited Konoha. Both Chunin had been friends since their time as kids in the academy, and had become inseparable since then. That fact had even been true even when it comes down to their shinobi career, being known throughout Konoha as Konoha's eternal Chunin. However, today, like the majority of other days, left the 2 men in a state of ennui. Izumo was the more tolerable of their missions, but his friend Kotetsu, on the other hand, had extremely low patience and did anything to soothe his growing boredom. Kotetsu sat at the desk with his feet propped up against the desk without any courtesy or respect for his partner, or his position as a chunin for that matter, and proceeded to make popping noises as a means of entertainment. Pop! 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 Kotetsu! Stop making those damn popping sounds. What? You can't blame me for being bored, he said in a carefree tone. He honestly didn't care if he got scolded by Izumo. He just didn't want to be stuck guarding the gate of the village. Rarely did anyone leave or enter the village besides shinobi, and if so, it was a brief confrontation of "Hi sir/ma'am. May I please see your passport and information?" Followed by, "Thank you sir/ma'am, enjoy your stay in Konoha," with a forced smile to the visitors and assure them that everyone in Konoha was friendly. He simply hated doing that. He wanted to do escort missions and many other things that would eventually get him promoted to jonin, but he was stuck here, sitting at a desk with nothing to do but make impressions of sounds. Izumo stared at Kotetsu with a glare just begging to burn a hole through his irritable friend. He pulled out a scroll and threw it hard into Kotetsu's lap, gaining a yelp in response. "Then why don't you read the guidelines of Chunin etiquette?" Kotetsu grabbed the scroll with distaste. "This again? I've already read it 20 times. Then read it again." Kotetsu sighed as he unraveled the scroll and began reading, leaving the two Chunin in peaceful silence for about 10 minutes. "Hey Izumo? What is it this time, Kotetsu? Why did we get assigned this job again?" Izumo sighed, rolling his eyes in exasperation. "For the last time, Kotetsu, I don't know. Seriously, why do you complain so much?" "Because we've been stuck here for months without any action. I want some action or just something to liven up my job." Izumo scratched his temples and released a disgruntled moan. "Honestly, Kotetsu, it's—" Kotetsu interrupted Izumo by shoving the scroll in his mouth, shutting him up. The stuffed Chunin began mumbling and cursing muffled profanities. "Quiet, Izumo, I heard footsteps." Izumo stopped talking and leaned forward to see if he could find the source. He squinted his eyes to see 3 silhouettes walking towards the gates of Konoha. "Hey Izumo, the tall one, isn't that?" The figure had waist-length, spiky white hair tied in a long ponytail with 2 bangs framing the side of his face on top of a horned forehead protector with the kanji for oil engraved in the center. He wore a green short kimono and matching pants that were held by a black belt. Underneath them were mesh armor that showed out of the sleeves and legs of his outfit. To complete his outfit, he donned a red haori, traditional wooden sandals, and had a large scroll tied to his back. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's Jiraiya-sama. Izumo, who are the 2 walking next to him? I don't recognize the woman, but the blonde one looks awfully familiar. Right next to Jiraiya was a blonde young man who was only a couple inches shorter than him with neck-length hair. He wore a standardized black Konoha forehead protector which parted his hair, leaving 3 long bangs to hang over the right side of his face. He was wearing a black long-sleeved jacket with a dark blue outline and a sky-blue lightning pattern arching from his right shoulder to his stomach. The collars were propped up, showing the blue Uzumaki clan insignia and the gray mesh shirt underneath. He wore black cargo pants, with 2 kunai holsters, tucked into his dark blue shinobi sandals, and on his back was a kodachi. Wait a minute, if Jiraiya's back, then that also means that Naruto, Jiraiya spoke. Take foot and show her around the village, introduce her to some of your friends, while I go speak with Tsunade. Yeah, Erokyofu. Izumo and Kotetsu watched the scene unfold right in front of them and turned to the young woman, who laughed as Jiraiya barked at Naruto, who shot clever remarks right back at him. The young woman was a sight for sore eyes, to say the least. Her mint green hair waved in the wind, covering orange eyes. Her elegant figure was covered by a white midriff shirt that stopped just below her chest. Underneath it was a sleeveless fishnet shirt that cut off above her navel. She covered her arms with white arm warmers and had fishnet shorts with a short white apron skirt over it. She carried a red cylindrical object on her back with purposes either Chunin could think of. Follow me. There's something I want to show. If you say so, Goldilocks. You better show those spots that you told me about. Don't worry, Mosshead. I will, Naruto said, leaping in the air with amazing speed. Fu followed after him in hot pursuit, surprising Kotetsu and Izumo. Whoa, that was Naruto? He's changed from the little gaki I used to know who pulled pranks. Hey, yeah, those were some good times. Kotetsu sighed, cupping his face, reminiscing of old times. Unfortunately, his trip down memory lane was at an end when a loud cough broke him from his trance. Jiraiya-sama. Both Chunin bolted from their seats and bowed to the Gamma Sennin. Ma. There's no need for that," he insisted. The duo raised their upper bodies and stood firm. Kotetsu was the first to speak. "Jiraiya-sama, was that Naruto?" "Indeed it was. That boy sure has grown from when I took him with me 3 years ago," Jiraiya said as he began walking through the gate. "I'll be on my way then, take care you too." With that he left, disappearing from the Chunin's view to go check on his favorite place within the entire village, the Konoha hot springs. Jiraiya giggled to himself as hopped from one building to another. Time to venture into some long-awaited research. Kotetsu sat down in his seat and propped his feet on the desk, instantly bored. "Ah, well, that was fun while it lasted. Seeing Jiraiya-sama after 3 years, and that kid Naruto. He sure has grown from that little runt who ran around in bright orange, and from the looks of it, it seems he's matured. Wouldn't you say, Izumo?" Izumo, who was still staring in the direction of where the blonde had left, nodded. "Yeah. But I wonder, who was that girl with Naruto? Maybe his girlfriend?" "Heh, that's surprising. From what I heard from those who graduated with him, he had a crush on the apprentice of Tsunade-sama." "Oh, Haruno Sakura, right?" "Yeah, that's the one. They said that he'd chase her around and ask for dates 24/7 every chance he got, even after being rejected from the previous attempts." "Ah," Kotetsu hummed, scratching his chin. "Well, he's been gone for 3 years, and by the way he looks now, I'd say it's had a big impact on him." You're very perceptive, Kotetsu," Izumo said, looking at his friend in a whole new light. "Just because I sit here and act childish doesn't mean I don't pay attention to my surroundings," Kotetsu sagely replied. "Oh, wow. You know you might actually get that jonin position if you actually put more effort into the guarding this." However, he was interrupted by the sound of someone snoring loudly. He turned to see that the Chunin next to him had astonishingly fallen asleep in less than 30 seconds. Izumo sighed. "Idiot. This is going to be a long day." Village Center Kanohigakur no Sato. "Wha?" Fu gasped in amazement. "The village is beautiful. Just like you said, Goldilocks." "Yeah, it's amazing. It feels great to finally be back home. It hasn't changed one bit since I left." Standing tall and proud on top of one of the buildings, Naruto smiled as he looked at the village before glancing at the Hokage mountain with wide eyes. "Oh, now that's a surprise." They added Bachan's face to the Hokage mountain. "It'll be a matter of time before my face is up there." "I don't know, Goldilocks. I'm not sure you're Kage material yet," Fu said casually. Naruto's eye twitched a bit before he calmed down and exhaled. "You'll just have to wait and see Moss Head. Before you know it, my face will be up there, and you'll be calling me Hokage-sama," he shot back. "In your dreams? You'll always be Goldilocks to me, and there's nothing you can do to change that." "Meh, whatever." Naruto inhaled deeply before shouting. "I hope you're ready, everyone. Uzumaki Naruto is back and stronger than ever." He stood there for a few minutes, and noticed a group of 4 people that stood out from the rest of the crowd. He grabbed Fu and picked her up bridal style before, surprising her, as she suddenly found the world becoming a blur as Naruto jumped down. "Come on, Fu, there's some people I want you to meet." "Huh?" Fu blushed slightly at noticing their position, but Naruto had already set her down on her feet by the time she had gotten her bearings. She tilted her head in confusion as she noticed 4 people headed her way. "Sakura! Konohamaru! Moegi! Udon!" Naruto shouted to the approaching party. Sakura was the first to arrive, and to say the least, she was really surprised by the sudden change from the last time she saw him. Just staring at him, and seeing just how much he had grown as a member of the opposite sex made a reddish tint appear as the blood rushed to her cheeks. Is that really you, Naruto?" she asked. She received a genuine smile from the 16-year-old. "Yep. In the flesh." He pointed his thumb into his chest just to prove his point. "Wow." Sakura raised a hand to the top of her head before seeing that it went up at an angle when she touched Naruto's own head. "You're much taller than me, aren't you?" Naruto sheepishly scratched his head, chuckling happily. "Yeah, I guess so." Erokyofu had me balance my diet and gave me healthier food to eat. It worked out for the better. Sakura just smiled at him with livid eyes. He's got a build since I saw him last. So. She paused as she began blushing intensely. Do you think I've become a bit womanly? She pointed her finger at herself in a cute manner, catching Naruto off guard. He thought to himself, choosing his words wisely before he voiced his opinion. Unknown to him, though, Kamina and Kurama were speaking privately and making a game out of the current situation. Watch this. I bet you he's about to say something incredibly stupid to the pink-haired monkey and make her punch him. Kurama laughed. TCH, I bet you my pride as a Raijuu he won't. In fact, I bet you that he'll dazzle her. He smirked. Kurama sprouted a deadly grin. You're playing a deadly game here, lightning rat. If he does what I say he will do, which he will, then you'll have to address me as Kyubi-sama for 3 months. Kurama stretched out a claw and slid it easily through his cage's bars. Hee, if I win then you'll have to call me the handsome and beastly Kamina-sama for 3 months. Kamina outstretched his paw to shake said Bijou's claw. Deal. Kamina and Kurama looked up outside of the blonde's mindscape and watched as events unfolded. Actually, I think you're exactly the same, he stated bluntly. Sakura grew a tick mark as she felt offended by his words. Fu was shocked at the stupidity in his choice of words and released a loud cough as she tried to disguise the bark of laughter she would have made. Even Jiraiya, who just arrived and only heard what Naruto said, shook his head in disappointment. Haha! I told you he'd say something stupid! Just look at the expression on the monkey's face. Hey, you better start getting used to calling me Kyubi-sama. Kurama bellowed as he rolled around in his cage. Kamina had his snout in his hands as he cried. Shut up, it's not over yet. Come on, Naruto. He lifted his head, staring at the ceiling with hope etched into his eyes. I still believe in you. Please say something to sweep her off her feet. If you don't, I'll make you run 1,000 laps. They continued to watch on as Sakura was about ready to clobber the hell out of him, but was shocked as he continued to speak. The same strong girl with elegant cherry blossom hair and sparkling emerald eyes that I fought alongside in missions and supported Team 7. To say the least, she and everyone who heard was surprised. Jiraiya smirked as he nodded towards Naruto. Sakura blushed madly, feeling flustered, and Fu's disguised laughter immediately died away, a scowl unknowingly forming on her face. She turned her head, finding the chirping blue birds interesting. She didn't know why she was feeling this way, but all she knew was that she didn't like the way Naruto talked to the pinkette. Inside Naruto's mind, Kurama was groaning and frowning as the lightning beast sang in joy. Yes. I knew I wasn't wrong when I placed the bet on Naruto. This boy is going to go far. Now look who's crying. Kamina teased the mightiest of the 9 Bijou, irritating said Bijou. Kurama growled. Don't forget who you're talking to. If it wasn't for this cage, I'd rip you into pieces, you insignificant rat. He was cut off as Kamina raised a claw and waved it in front of the Bijou. Nah, Kurama. That's handsome and beastly Kamina-sama to you for the next 3 months. He chided. Kurama growled at being called by his true name, and receded to the depths of his cell while mumbling under his breath. This is going to be the longest 3 months. Naruto ni-san. Huh! He shifted his attention towards the direction he heard his name, and was greeted by a white plume of smoke. Once it disappeared, a naked brunette winked at him and spoke seductively. Oiroku no jutsu. Ga! Jiraiya shouted, being blown back by a massive nosebleed with a goofy smile on his face. Sakura was taken back and presented a look of horror on her face. Fu had a similar reaction. In another plume of smoke, Konohamaru reverted back to normal, dropping the hinge. How about that Nissan? Pretty nice waist, hips, and bust, huh? Konohamaru pointed at himself, waiting for Naruto to praise him for his fantastic work on the Oiroku no Jutsu. Naruto chuckled at the young Sarutobi, who was confused by the sudden laughter. Konohamaru, I'm not a kid anymore. And the same goes for you. You shouldn't be using that jutsu like that out in the open. Konohamaru lowered his head in shame, realizing the childishness of his actions. It isn't just his appearance that's matured, but also, I kind of feel a bit lonesome, but you've turned out quite admirable, Naruto. Sakura thought to herself. Knowing you, I'd bet you came back having acquired some incredible jutsu. Hey, cheer up, Konohamaru. Later on I'll teach you an amazing jutsu called the Rasengan that I learned a while back with Ero Kyofu, he said, pointing at the downed Sannin who was drooling. But also, a massive grin stretched across his I'll teach you the new and improved anti-pervert jutsu, he shouted. Konohamaru stared at Naruto with stars in his eyes. Really, Naruto-ni-san? Yeah, that we could. Why, you little. Sakura was upon Naruto in an instant, and was a few inches from hitting the blonde for trying to corrupt Konohamaru in front of her. To her, she thought Naruto had really improved and she saw him in a whole new light, but he ruined that image. However, she suddenly began to blink owlishly as she hit nothing but air, her fist not hitting her target. She jumped when she felt the temperature drop a few degrees as a sudden pressure was pressed onto her body, causing her to tremble. It was the same feeling she had gotten. She was a fresh genin, the same feeling of the killing intent that had once been unleashed upon her by one Momochi Zabuza. Slowly, she turned her head around to see Naruto. However, instead of the happy-go-lucky smiling buffoon that she knew all too well, this one was a totally different person. There was a cold demeanor about him. His warm blue eyes were now cold as ice, and he bore an aura that felt as if she were about to be swallowed by a giant untamed whirlpool. This Naruto held a look that bore into her very soul, deeming her insignificant. Oi, Sakura-chan, I really have issues with people trying to hit me. It makes me all antsy to hurt them at the first chance I get and slice them up with my blade, so I'd advise you not to try that again if you value your hand, nay? She nodded dumbly, not speaking as her voice betrayed her. His voice was cold and sharp, devoid of any emotion, and belonged to a killer. This was not the Naruto she knew. All right. Fu clapped her hands together to get everyone's attention. Now that the little reunion is over, would you mind introducing me to everyone, Goldilocks? Oh, right. Naruto's eyes brightened as he reverted back to his hyperactive knucklehead form. I totally forgot about that. Everyone, this is Fu, the second apprentice of Ero Kyofu. What? Konohamaru yelled. No fair. He eyed her intensively up and down before a grin made its way onto his face. Hey Naruto-ni-san, is she your girlfriend? Huh? Oh no. He drew out, waving his arms and placing them in an X. He pointed at her with his thumb. We're just friends, so I wouldn't date her, he stated. What was that, Goldilocks? Are you saying you're too good for me? She snapped, glaring daggers at him. WHWH what? No! I wasn't saying that at all. I'm just saying that we're just friends, Moss Head. He shot back. Don't lie to me, Goldilocks. Damn it, Moss Head. Stop making things worse. A spark of lightning shot forth between the two Jinchuriki as they glared intensely at one another. Whoa! Jiraiya has a second apprentice? I'm so jealous. Moegi whined. Fu broke her glaring contest with the blonde Jinchuriki before bending down to the shorter Kunoichi's level, patting her on her head in a comforting manner. It's not as great as it seems. All he does is leave Goldilocks and I at an inn and then leave to go off and spy on some poor girls at a hot spring for research. She sighed sadly. To make things worse for the Toad Sennin, Naruto nodded his head in agreement. Yeah, he'd even train us halfway and expected us to figure out the rest on our own. Such horrible times. I'm not that bad, Jiraiya exclaimed, completely recovered from his nosebleed. Besides, if we don't get to Tsunadeheim's office, she'll kill me. He chuckled weakly. You went straight to the bathhouse, didn't you? Naruto deadpanned. So what if I did? I'm a super pervert. The Sannin member defended himself. That's not exactly the best defense, Ero Kyofu. Naruto deadpanned. Anyway, let's just get there and get things over with. I still have places to show Fu, Naruto stated. He said his goodbyes to the Konohamaru trio and left with Jiraiya, Sakura, and Fu to the Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower Konohagaku no Sato. It's been a long time since you two. I'm sure his training produced some stellar results? Tsunade asked. Jiraiya smirked. I'm hurt, Haim. Do you think we came back without making progress? Tsunade gave Jiraiya a deadpan stare, making the large man pout, before smiling and placing his hand on the blonde's shoulder. My honest opinion, the Gaki is a true genius of hard work and has grown into a fine shinobi. I would think he is greater than even Kakashi in certain areas. The only exception would be due to difference in experience. You think so, huh? Tsunade looked over to the blonde with a serious stare. Do you believe what Jiraiya says is true? Naruto nodded stiffly in agreement with his sensei. I've improved greatly since you last saw me at Kiri's Chunin exam. I'll say that I'm at a high Jonin level or so, Naruto stated, crossing his arms over his chest. He wasn't one to boast about his power and skill, but he knew where he was at when he wasn't using his Kekkei Genkai. Over the last 3 months he went through vigorous training with Jiraiya, Kamina and the Kyuubi, and increased his abilities to far above what he was when Tsunade had last seen him, and he felt like he had surpassed the expectations of that of a normal Jonin. Tsunade smirked at the blonde. We'll see soon enough if you need to be promoted to Jonin rank, but first. She shifted her head in the direction of Fu. Tell me the extent of her abilities, Jiraiya? He sighed as he pondered on the thought for a minute. I honestly believe that her skills are that of a Jonin, and could go toe-to-toe with some of the Konoha Jonin, said Kunoichi grinned as she received praise from the Toad Sage. However, she needs a little more experience out on the field before I'd even recommend giving her the position. So I'd say she's Chunin level. Her grin quickly disappeared and warped into a frown. Alright then. I'll have her registered as a Konoha Chunin and both your vest and Konoha headband will be here for you to wear after Naruto here. Tsunade's eyes gained a light of amusement. Shows me the results of his training. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi tilted his head in confusion. Show you? Yes. You will take on a particular man who will test your abilities to see if you're really Jonin material like you say. I didn't send him on any missions for the past several days and had him on standby for this very purpose. Your opponent will be. A knock was sounded and the attention was directed towards the closed door. Enter. The door opened to reveal none other than Nara Shikamaru and Sabaka no Temari. Hello? The Nara spoke with his trademark bored and lazy tone of voice. Sakura waved at the two. Shikamaru, Temari! Look who's here! She pointed in the direction of Naruto, surprising the two shinobi. Naruto? The shadow wielder muttered. He looked Naruto up and down, noticing major differences in his longtime friend's appearance. That's really you, Naruto. Well, if it isn't the Cloud Watcher himself. Shikamaru, it's been too long, Naruto shouted in excitement. Is that the little shrimp who beat Gaara? Temari thought, not believing her eyes. So you're back? Shikamaru asked as the blonde shinobi approached him. Yeah, I got back here this morning. Hey, you don't look as stupid as before. I mean, you've changed a lot in those 3 years, right? Geez, that's nice of you to say, lazy ass, he said as he chuckled. Though yeah, I've changed a lot. I'm 10 times smarter and 10 times stronger than I was 3 years ago. He laughed. Sakura was about to say something, but refrained from doing so as she remembered how Naruto avoided her punch and threatened her. So does this mean that you're my opponent, Shikamaru? I didn't take you for one to patiently wait for someone for a couple of days just to fight them. Or for one to fight, period, Naruto noted mentally. The boy can't be that bad, Naruto. Cut him some slack, he looks like a decent, well-kept shinobi. Kamina voiced Naruto. Trust me, Kamina-sensei. If he can avoid a fight and watch clouds instead, he'll find a way. Kid has a point. The Nara boy would rather go watch the stars than face me when I was released in the village, Kurama said as he scoffed lazy-ass Naras. Shikamaru raised a brow at the question. No. I just came to deliver some documents. I thought so. He turned to the blonde Tsunade next to Shikamaru. I'm guessing that you're not the person I'm supposed to fight either, right? She shook her head, gaining a sigh from her fellow blonde. Naruto, your opponent is out there. Tsunade pointed to the window behind her. Naruto casually walked to where she had pointed to and was surprised by who he saw leaning on the outer wall. You sure have gotten taller, Naruto, And from the looks of it, it seems you had a wardrobe change as well. The man who sat on the lower roof that supported the office had gravity-defying silver hair. He wore the standard Konoha Jonin attire, and wore a pair of fingerless gloves. The only thing that stood out besides his hair was the face mask that covered his entire lower face, and the tilted forehead protector that covered his left eye entirely. This man was none other than Hitaki Kakashi, the former Jonin instructor of Team 7 and former sensei of Naruto. Yo! Kakashi-sensei, long time no see! Naruto jumped out the window, making his way towards Kakashi. You haven't changed a single bit, sensei. He chirped. He reached into his back pocket with a wide, goofy grin. I almost forgot that I got you a present, sensei. The confused Jonin just stared at the Chunin as he dug through his pouch. Tsunade and Sakura watched from the window as the scene in front of them took place. Tsunade spoke just loud enough for Sakura to hear her. This sure is nostalgic, isn't Sakura? Yeah, it sure is. What? Kakashi shouted as the object in Naruto's hands had surprised him more than anything that Naruto could have pulled out. You got me. This is the first new title in the Ika series to ever come out in 3 years. Naruto stated as he handed the book over to his teacher. I for one am not fond of the books myself and prefer something with more story and in-depth characters than just senseless smut, but you like this stuff from what I can remember. Jiraiya scoffed and turned the other way in anger after hearing the words exit from Naruto's mouth. Fu glanced at him and taunted him by sticking her tongue out at him, and in return got a scowl. That idiot. No way could a brat like him understand the appeal of my writings, and on top of that, it's a rare item that hasn't even been released yet. Kakashi slowly opened the book and was blinded by the light that seemed to shine with the opening of the front cover. Amazing! He whispered with a tear threatening to fall as the smell of the fresh pages swarmed his nostrils, despite them being covered by his face mask. Although, his moment with his new book was short-lived as Tsunade shouted at him. Alright, Kakashi. That's enough fun for now. Kakashi lifted his head from the book and snapped it shut instantly. So you're my opponent? Naruto asked. Not quite. Kakashi answered, walking to the window with Naruto following. He was slightly surprised by the pink-haired female that stood in front of him. It's been a while since I saw you as well, Sakura. Yes, it has, Kakashi-sensei. My opponents will be the both of you, Naruto, Sakura. Kakashi turned his head to face the newly made Chunin of Konoha. And the young lady over there. Fu, was it? The girl nodded, not saying a word to the man. I will be facing you three, but it will be between me and Naruto first, then between Sakura, Fu, and myself so that I may evaluate how well they can work together as a team. I see. The blonde looked over to the two kunoichi, so he is our opponent. Naruto thought. Yes, so come down to the training ground 3 at 7. Be prepared, all of you. Kakashi stated as he waved his hand and disappeared in a poof of smoke. So that's your former sensei. Fu stated softly as she looked at where the man sat and shook her head. I'm not entirely impressed by him. If he's the one who taught you before the Gamma Sennin, then I'm quite ashamed. True, he didn't teach me like he was supposed to and neglected my and Sakura's training for Sasuke's, but if it wasn't for him not training me, I probably wouldn't have ended up with Jiraiya and therefore I wouldn't have met you. That's one way to look at it, I guess. The real question is, do you think you're strong enough to take him? Kamina asked. By myself, I don't know. He's been a Jonin for years, and while I don't want to admit it, he could be stronger since he has a lot more experience than me. However, nearly 3 years have passed, and our skills are foreign to one another. He doesn't know what I have on the table while I don't know what he has under his sleeves. I say we are leveled out on the playing field. What about your former teammate? Oh, Sakura-chan? I don't know about her either. She trained with Bachan, so I'm pretty sure she's learned a thing or two over the past 3 years. The blonde was removed from his conversation with the divine being as Tsunade began to speak to her apprentice. Sakura, prove to me that you weren't just wasting your time training under me. Said Kunoichi stood firm and spoke with respect just as any other shinobi would when speaking to their Hokage. Yes, Tsunade Shusho. I'd like to get right to it, But since you just got back Naruto, you must be tired. I'll give you a short rest. Naruto took a step forward and was completely offended. I'm not particularly tired or anything. Matter of fact, I'm quite the opposite, he insisted, but his words fell on deaf ears as Sakura spoke. Actually, I think I saw him pat his pouch before he left. So that means he's going to read the book. Shikamaru finished. Naruto looked between his former teammate and his childhood friend, the muscle under his eyes twitching ever so often. With that look he had, there's no doubt about it. Sakura concluded by snapping her fingers in realization. The twitching increased in frequency. That's the obvious reaction after getting an unreleased copy of one of my books. Jiraiya thought to himself, feeling proud of the reaction he got from Kakashi. Fu glowered at the white-haired Sannin member, knowing full well what he was thinking with that smug grin on his face. This idiot must feel proud of himself, having a grown man jump at the chance to read one of his trashy books. Hey, now hold yourself there, Fu. Those books of his aren't that bad. TCH, of course you think that way. Aronanabai. I don't care what you think. The lucky number 7 doesn't care what a lowly, hairless ape thinks, and that series that the Jiraiya person made is the best thing a human has ever done. Chomei muttered under his breath. You do know I can still hear you when you try to mutter things to yourself, right? Fu sighed. Just keep your perverted thoughts to yourself. It's bad enough I have to deal with the self-proclaimed super pervert. I don't want to have to deal with you either. Well, Chomei started, if you don't want to deal with me you could always just… No, Fu bluntly said, already knew what the Kabutomushi was about to ask. Meh, it was worth a shot. Training Ground 3 Konohagakure no Sato. Uzumaki Naruto paced back and forth with a book in his hand, grumbling to himself as he was looking over his Fuinjutsu notes, while patiently waiting for his former Jonin instructor. It had been about 3 hours since the actual given time that he, Fu, and Sakura were supposed to arrive at the training grounds and take whatever test the Jonin was assigned to give them, and he was antsy. He couldn't control the excitement that flowed through his veins as he was about to prove his abilities against one of the strongest Jonin in the entire village. However, the 3-year training trip had pushed a lot of things into the back of his mind, and the fact that Kakashi arrived 3 hours late to everything was one of them. But one of the things he learned over the course of 3 years was to find a hobby to pass the time whenever he was free from training or missions. One of his favorite things to do was to go over his current seals and use the knowledge he'd gained to make new transmutation arrays and multiple matrix seals for combat purposes. However, the Nanabai's Jinchuriki couldn't take it. The constant sound of Naruto's trudging back and forth on the dry gravel, and in combination of her Bijuu's own boredom being alleviated by making an incessant ticking noise in her head after each passing second, was enough for her to snap. Where the hell is he? I can understand being 10 minutes late, but making someone wait this long, something has to be a crime, she shouted. Is he always like this? Sakura nodded gloomily. Sadly, yes. He used to make us wait like this all the time as a genin. Damn it! As soon as that scarecrow get here I'm gonna… Poof! A loud sound sounded above them as someone made their entrance via Shunshin. Yo! Sorry I'm late, I was on my way, but an old lady needed my help with carrying some groceries. Kakashi apologized with his famous eye smile. However, none of the 3 teens present believed him. That's a lie. Both Sakura and Fu yelled in unison. Naruto closed his book and tucked it away. You know, you could have improved a little in this aspect while I was gone, Kakashi-sensei. The Jonin's sweat dropped as the 2 females released killing intent towards him. All 4 of them began walking deeper into the training ground. Ah. Naruto sighed. This place takes me back. He stared at the 3 stumps and remembered the first time he, Sakura, and Sasuke took the bell test. Oh yeah, come to think of it, this was your first training ground, wasn't it? Kakashi asked while reading Ika Ika. Team 7. Sakura whispered. Her former teammate just stared at the sky. The 3-man squad, huh? Back then things sure were different, but now, time changes things. Naruto stated. Back then we had Sasuke with us. Kakashi noted solemnly. Remembering the guilt he felt having learned that the rescue mission was a failure, taking part of the blame for allowing things to accumulate the way it did. He lifted his head and was horrified by the way Sakura acted, having curled up into a ball with her face tucked into her legs. Naruto, on the other hand, was normal. He'd expected the boy to be on the ground on his knees and arms, sulking just like Sakura. Instead, he was standing without a single form of guilt or regret. Naruto stood reminiscing. Back then I was naive to believe that I could save him. He made a choice to follow his dream, his ambition, and moved on ahead. It's about time that I did too, he thought. Sasuke's name is still a touchy subject for Sakura, but Naruto, however, I guess he's moved on and accepted the fact that Sasuke left the village. He's grown in more ways than one, it seems. Kakashi dug in his pocket, and a short jingling sound caught the attention of the three Chunin. Well, it's about time we start the test. We'll see how much Naruto has grown first, after which I'll proceed to test Fu's abilities to see if you're as good as Jiraiya-sama says you are and see if you are compatible with Sakura in teamwork. Naruto and Sakura were slightly surprised to see the two bells that they had fought over after their graduation. They were a bit scratched and dented in some areas due to years of banging around inside the man's weapons pouch, but they were still the same bells. Hey Naruto, why does he have those bells? Fu asked. Oh right, I never did tell you how I became a genin, did I? Once he got a sign that he was right, he continued. After our graduation, Kakashi-sensei used those bells as an objective for me, Sakura-chan, and Sasuke to retrieve as a means of officially graduating. Whoever didn't get a bell had to return to the academy and try next year. Wait, that doesn't make sense. A team of genin are specifically supposed to consist of 3 genin and a jonin as the leader. She recited straight from her basic kunoichi training in Takigakure. Kakashi smiled at the girl's perceptive thinking, noting that Jiraiya wasn't lying when he gave him and run down on the girl's abilities before continuing. Naruto, Sakura, you haven't given up on Sasuke, have you? Absolutely not, Sakura declared, getting up. Naruto smirked at the silver-haired jonin. Haven't broken a promise yet, and I don't intend to start now. It'd look bad on my resume when I snatched the Hokage hat from Bachan. Good. Kakashi nodded. The Sharingan user walked over to the stump and placed the bells on the flat surface before walking back to look at the blonde. Alright Naruto, the rules will be different for you and me. This is an evaluation from me as your former sensei to see if you qualify for being a jonin. This means you have to fight me with all you have. You will have to come at you with the intent to kill. Naruto finished. Exactly. If you don't come at me with the intent to kill, you won't be able to be jonin on my count. I'll evaluate you for 2 hours to see all your skill sets. Alright. Good. Kakashi nodded. Now once our fight is over I'll face you too, since Fu does not know the rules. I'll put them into simple terms. I don't care how you do it, just take a bell away from me, otherwise we fail and can't be a team, right? Sakura concluded. Yes. Kakashi stated simply. Fu smirked as she tightened her fist. Finally some action. Heh, someone's all jittery, Chomei remarked. I can literally smell the anxiety rolling off of you from here. You got to understand, it has been almost over a year since I have had a good fight. Despite training with Naruto and Jiraiya, the missions we have been through were not satisfying aside from the few B-ranked missions that we got during that time. Not to mention I am new here, so I want to show people what I am capable of. I've been waiting for this chance to fight someone and show them how Fu gets it done, that I won't be taken down easily. That's the spirit, Fu. Show them the might of Lucky Seven's Jinchuriki, he roared. Fu nodded with her grin growing wider. Sakura clenched the gloves in her hands and proceeded to put them on, and Naruto's right hand twitched, just itching to grab the sword holstered on his back. This was his moment. The moment where he put his cards out on the table and showed everyone just how powerful Uzumaki Naruto was and how much you shouldn't trifle with him. Now then. Kakashi closed his Aika book. Shall we begin? You're not going to do it while reading that book this time around, Kakashi-sensei? Naruto asked in amusement as he walked a few steps away from Sakura and Fu, pulling on his headband lightly. Well then, I hope you don't take me lightly, Kakashi-san. I wouldn't want you to get hurt in a little training accident now, do we? Naruto asked. Nope. He paused. I thought I'd save the rest for later. Besides, he reached for his Konoha protector and lifted it up, revealing his Sharingan. I kind of get the feeling that I may have to get a bit serious this time around, Kakashi said. Kakashi's senses went into full haywire as he heard the whizzing sound of metal flying through the air and instantly ducked just in time for the shooting stars to fly past him. His head snapped up and noticed that Naruto had disappeared. He shot back up in one fluid movement, performing an aerial backflip, dodging a swipe from Naruto. Naruto took this moment to shift his weight all into his hands and swung his legs and upper body, performing a flare. He hopped up and spun the kodachi in his hand in a reverse grip, and was about to swing it as his senses warned him of a presence behind him. But he was too late. A hand latched onto his wrist and another fiercely pushed his head down, making any form of movement impossible. Okay, that's as far as you go, Naruto, Kakashi said, casually holding the teen in place. I haven't said start yet, now have I? You'd think that from the last time you'd learned from your past doings. He chided, only to get confused as the teen laughed. Who's to say that I didn't want you to catch me? He replied. In that moment, Kakashi felt his grip on Naruto disappear and watched in shock as the teen vanished in a flash of blue lightning. What? How did he? It was then that he felt a cold metal blade on his neck. He moved his head slightly and shifted to get a glance of his former blonde student behind him, with a devilish grin gracing his face. The man sighed before sprouting a grin himself. Well, things just got a whole lot more interesting. Watching from only a few feet away was an amazed Sakura and a satisfied Fu, who only nodded, accepting the outcome of the short clash between the two male shinobi. He never was one to wait things out. He's just itching to test his abilities, Fu thought. Sakura herself was having different thoughts of her own. Amazing! He put himself in front of Kakashi, knowing full well he'd get captured and turn the tables on him when expecting Kakashi to underestimate him, and on top of that, the jutsu he used just now, what was it? That was very unexpected from you, Naruto, Kakashi commented. You always did tell us to look underneath. I just took advantage of the fact that you expected me to rush in head first without a plan, underestimating my abilities and turning the tides, Naruto said as he tightened the grip on his sword. Good thinking. I'll make sure not to underestimate you again like that. Especially with that jutsu of yours, he noted. Now, let's officially start this test. Sakura and Fu stared at the battlefield with anticipation of the fight ready to commence. Ready? Start.